Okay, we'll take a look at the minutes.
I think that in the executive session we should just say no action taken, just as a, maybe a standard procedural notation.
Oh, you know what, I didn't even reconvene you guys.
It says reconvening location. Oh, it doesn't say a time. Yeah.
I didn't reconvene you though.
We didn't take more than 5 minutes, so 8:26. Excuse me, and I would say no action taken.
Well, you were out at 8:21. Because you went in at 8:16. But there should be another line that says the chairman reconvened the meeting's regular session at 8:20.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, time out 8:28. Okay, 8:16, 8:21. I see it.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. So I added up another line that says the chairman reconvened the meeting's regular session at 8:21, 8:22.
Yes. And then I think where it says the correspondence from people about the administration of the nursing home, that should be known that it was a concern. Because it wasn't correspondence in support of, it was correspondence with concern about.
So instead of practices, concern?
Yes, please.
Is that okay with it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm striking practices and putting in.
I would move to approve May 7th, 2018 minutes as corrected.
Have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Brian, I guess we can go ahead with you. We got a pretty full agenda today, so we'll try to start out ahead of time a couple of minutes.
I'll be
I'm
brief then.
I'm sure we won't end up ahead of time today.
Good morning. I'm Brian Grace. I'm the Magistrate Judge for Lincoln County. And I'm here to talk to you about possibly displaying something in the courtroom. Just trying to get your assent to that. The week before last, Justice Larson, Ed Larson, who is now retired from the Kansas Supreme Court, he dropped by the courthouse, as he's apt to do from time to time. And, I was visiting with him, and he mentioned that he is no longer deciding cases, and he wondered, since he's a Lincoln County native, whether we would be interested in having his set of Kansas reports. Those are the reported decisions of the Kansas Supreme Court. We would be willing to take those volumes and display them somewhere in the courthouse. The local bar has met and feels that Justice Larson is one of the most distinguished jurists that Kansas has ever produced, and that having his volumes here, him being a Lincoln County native, would be of some historical significance. And one of the places we're talking about possibly displaying those would be the courtroom. There's a couple of sites in the courtroom that have more than sufficient space to do that. And and then the funding piece of it, we would probably need to spend some funds on a bookcase, something to appropriately display these. We think we could probably handle that through our law library fund, so there wouldn't be any direct impact to the county general fund. So at least that's what we're anticipating. So if that plan does come to fruition, I was just wanting to get the feeling of the board, since it's the people's courtroom, and you're the representatives of the people. I was wanting to get your feelings on displaying those in the courtroom.
I think it would be great if he wants to donate them, and I don't see any problem with us displaying them.
And we do it in a place where it's appropriate and wouldn't disrupt operations, or still be room for people to get by and such.
Yeah, that sounds neat.
No, I think it's great.
All right.
He's a very well-known jurist, as you say.
Yes. Yes. Okay, great. I just wanted to get a sense of where the commission would be at on that, and so if that plan does come to fruition and we need to visit in more detail, I'll come back down and update you.
Okay.
I won't take up any more of your time, and see you have a busy day on tap.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
We had correspondence last week. I don't know if we read through the rest of it, but I know we didn't get to this one. I'll read it. Dear County Commissioners, I attended a town hall meeting at Vesper Friday evening, April 27th, 2018. I want to commend and thank one commissioner that attended this meeting, along with a few Lincoln County employees who contributed valuably to the discussion with answers or were there for support. I also thank the moderator for handling this meeting and the newspaper for attending. Before I go any further, I want to voice my deep disappointment for the lack of attendance by the other 2/3 of the county commissioners, since both have had many years of expertise and could have, more than likely should have, been able to contribute to the answers from questions posed. You too should also be proud of the commissioner who did attend, because she took the questions and heat for each of you. Shame on you. The issues addressed at the meeting were all Lincoln County-wide issues, like failing bridges, lack of itemization on payment vouchers from the county attorney, Cora, website to view meetings in Lincoln County, the continuous lack to second a motion made by Mrs. Flug so there can be discussion on the subject, high taxes in our county, nursing home expenses, and now a change of hands again, how easily two commissioners can vote in a $2 million expense to the county, that Lincoln County ranks in 5th from the highest mill levy out of the 105 Kansas counties, pilot and web fund establishment with reference to the previously mentioned items, Lincoln County Economic Development Foundation, senior programs in the county and how the money is distributed, use of senior program funds to allow the employment of a full-time employee with benefits, which is uncommon to surrounding areas, hidden savings accounts that are funded by annual mill levy contributions, EMS and how the system is to work, especially when 2 ambulances are called out at the same time, change and the lack of desire to address it. The one issue I was surprised that wasn't brought up for full discussion is the road gravel condition, especially in my part of the county. The last 2 rains were welcome, but 120th was so terrible each time that no city women would have tackled it, let alone an ambulance. Since it is a major road from Highway K-18 to Interstate 70, attention needs to be given to it very soon. It would be very appreciated. I have already written the road department about this issue. Thank you to each commissioner for taking time to serve in your position each week. My point in writing this letter is to ask that the 3 commissioners of Lincoln County, Kansas work together for the sake of the whole county and all that live within its boundaries. I know it is a hard job to face all the issues that have been simmering for years but are now boiling because they have not been addressed. You are our public servants, no matter where you live in the county. If you don't think the discussed items at the Vesper meeting are important and need discussion by a second in the weekly meetings, then maybe you should consider letting someone else do your job that will handle them. Thank you for your time. Emily Wacker, 120th Road, Lincoln, Kansas.
I don't even see if Deborah can come down, really.
See if Debora can come down.
Well, just to reiterate, those were the topics that were discussed. Dawn, this should probably go on file, but I think overall it was a productive meeting and there will be a follow-up. And I think it might behoove the board to go ahead and try to prompt it ourselves. I think it would give you good standing to move forward in that direction. We could call a town hall meeting just as many other positions do, especially state level, federal level. I mean, we just had Senator Moran in the courthouse. We had Troy Waymaster. I actually hosted him in Sylvan. You know, this is a pretty typical practice that I think we should partake. So what do you say about planning a town hall?
I think that Senator Moran coming and Troy Waymaster wasn't a quorum. I think that the town hall in Vesper's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But normally those are put on by an organization and they have a non-biased mediator, and by no stretch of the imagination could David Gertzman be considered a non-biased mediator.
Which is why the board should put it on then. That would be completely appropriate. It doesn't matter if we have a quorum or not, if we call the meeting.
Deborah?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Back in December, we reviewed a couple of times the performance evaluations, and Alexis asked that I come back for you guys to formally make a motion to approve them, so I brought another copy. One is the department head, one is the employee, but I brought one of each again for you to take a look at again.
This third page, is that only for the supervisory? You said one's for...
One of you has the one that is the evaluation for the employee.
Oh,
and
I'm
the
sorry,
other one,
they're
yeah, I just
different.
didn't make
Okay,
3 copies
they're
because I
different.
gave
That's
them to
fine.
you before. And
That's fine. I
Yes.
was just looking, thinking, but
Yes.
yeah.
yes, they are different.
I understand. So this is the supervisor one because it says about budget
Mhm.
and leadership. So then I think what we need to do as a board is, after we approve these, go ahead and do one for each department head.
How's it? any of the department heads looked at the employee ones?
Yes, they have, when Ladonna was here the one time and she visited with you, I think she talked about, maybe, some training or some input on, you know, how you guys expected the process to go so that everyone was doing them uniformly.
Well, I think the detail you gave is good. It's pretty much self-explanatory. I would say her one concern was that we don't base all raises on that number scale. Because she said she wasn't willing to just give everyone an outstanding score to make sure they got their raise, which I agree with. That was a really good point.
And her concern was that all the departments were utilizing them in the same way, and that they were evaluating employees in the same way, and they weren't just all marking.
Well, I've been doing some visiting with some state level employees, everyone from their own highway department to law enforcement. And the last time that any of these particular people in this area got an actual, what they would call a cost of living raise, has been a decade. So I think our concept of just continually giving the cost of living raise every year has an adverse effect. And basically what I mean by that is we are effectively rewarding all employees just for lingering. There's no actual incentive. You know, if the state's not giving out cost of living
I think the state has like a grade and scale type system.
They have a percentage that they'll do, but when you're talking 2 or 4% on your income, that doesn't, depending on how much money you make, that doesn't even come close to 50 cents an hour.
Where some of them are, it's probably pretty good.
You'd have to be, I mean, we could do the math, but you'd have to be making a lot of money. So what I'm saying is in the last 10 years, what I saw, there were maybe 2 years out of the last 10, we didn't do 25 to 50 cents across the board, all employees. Whether you've had a write-up, whether you've, you know, performed poorly or not, was never evaluated. It was just straight across the board.
Or for those that perform exceptionally, haven't been rewarded for that either, because not all of our employees are poor employees.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think that I said that?
That's the way that I kind of took that, yes. Because some of our employees are great employees, and they too aren't rewarded for their exceptional work. They get the same as everyone else.
What I'm saying is not fair is if an exceptional employee shows up to work every day and puts forth 100%, and the person that they work with puts forth 70%, this county has been rewarding them equally.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just don't like sometimes the impression that all of our employees are poor employees, because some of them are really good employees.
You know what? That whole concept has really come out of this courthouse, and it has been poured down onto the employee level about me particularly. It's very interesting that when I talk to some of the employees, the feedback that I get is that I personally have made distinguishing decisions. You're cutting me off. And this is simply not the case. I mean, a lot of them don't watch the actual meetings, and they're told that I personally have decided something. It's amazing, because I can't decide anything. But the entire board has to make a decision for anything to be implemented. And so I find that we are in a conundrum, because I have done some criticizing of supervisory personnel, and this never seems to be what's related to the employees. It's that there's a direct attack on the employees. My personal view is that whatever the employees do or do not do is a direct reflection on who is supervising them. And we have had some major, major complaints over the last year and a half that have gone unaddressed. And then we've had, I mean, I have a list of about 10 things that have happened in one particular department that have gone unresolved and undiscussed. So when that happens, that's a direct reflection on the supervisory personnel. And if that's the discussion that everyone wants to have, that's fine, because that's the truth. For people to continue to insinuate, like you, Deborah, to say that I am saying that the employees,
not just here in the courthouse. I mean, as a community, as people as a whole, we sometimes concentrate on the negative part of staff instead of sometimes seeing the positive part.
No, that's not true.
I don't just mean you. I mean everyone.
No, that's not true. In fact, the
that's just my opinion.
employees in certain departments have been told that if they even speak to me, that their job is in jeopardy. That's what kind of situation we have going on underneath the surface. And so, you know, you just insinuated that I was saying that the employees are all terrible. That is not what I've ever said. What I've said is when we have certain complaints and they've gone unaddressed, that there's a chain of command that you follow. And we at the top are responsible for making sure that that happens. And when we don't have employee evaluations for how long? 10 years, maybe? I don't know, I'm taking a guess.
It's been a while.
At
I
least
didn't
5
look
years.
back.
So then how can anyone address that situation? You know, in fact, I had requested all the employee write-ups for the last year and a half, the year 2017 and 18, for the highway department, and there was one the whole time. So if anyone thinks, I mean, have we had any, in that amount of time, has anyone been released from their job? I know of one personally that has lost their job in the last 2017-18.
No, I don't think so. I don't have a list of all the staff in front of me, but I don't believe so.
You know of one, Terry?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my concern. If we're releasing people from
I
their
don't,
jobs
not in
without a write-up.
17.
No.
She
thought
said
you said in the
17
last-
and 18.
Oh, I thought you said the last 10
So it was
years.
16?
Potentially, yes, I think there was somebody.
Okay.
And the fact that there isn't a large number of employee write-ups doesn't mean that they don't have conversations with their staff regarding areas of improvement, things to work on, things like that.
It's just my understanding that the employee at his personal level is responsible for keeping track of things such as, you know, turning in the paperwork for what he does when he does it. I would expect the same in reciprocation from the next level. It's just common practice. I mean, these things that I'm talking about, that I'm being attacked and saying that I'm, you know, bad-mouthing the employees, it's nothing more than commonplace practice in the outside world. So I'm not requesting anything that is unusual or that's not standardized. We just haven't done it here. And in order for us to do proper assessments, we have to have this type of an evaluation. It's just that simple. I'd move to approve the Lincoln County employee performance evaluations presented by the HR department.
Have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anything else?
I don't have anything. Do
Those
you
look
have
good.
anything?
Okay. Do you want to keep them or? Got it.
If we're on, we're good. You only have one copy in your house, so.
I do think we need to come back to the discussion that the board should call a meeting. I think it's an important thing to take a stance with the public in that way. And Terry, you were saying it's a quorum. That doesn't matter. The only thing we have to do is notify the 4 people that we talked about last time. I mean, most of them that want to know attend the meetings anyhow, and it's just a simple matter of notifying them. If and when we decided to go into executive session, which I would never foresee in a public meeting, we take minutes. And I would suggest we could take minutes regardless. That would be a good idea, but it's not necessarily required. So I don't think that it's any stretch to publicly hold a town hall meeting.
I'm out in the public every day and I have a telephone. If someone has a concern, they can call me, they can stop me on the street.
But that's not the point. The point is we haven't held any evening meetings. There are people that have requested that. In fact, some of the feedback, which I will eventually bring, but some of the feedback from the town hall meeting is that they would like to see some availability in our time as a group. It's not just about you, Terry. You can't personally make any decisions. It's about us being available to answer questions as a board for those who, there are some people that would never ever be able to make a Monday morning. They have a permanent full-time job.
And I have a telephone, they can call me anytime.
That's not the point of being
What is the point?
available.
that's not available?
No,
What's not more available than being able to walk up to me at the gas station or the grocery store or call me on the telephone? Yes.
It's easier to talk to somebody face to face when you're talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
So calling
So
on the
you don't need a
telephone-
whole group of people to do it. If someone has a concern, they can come and talk to me.
But some people do, because there are times where you're rather intimidating, or like, I'm gonna use one example that happened between you and I, standing outside out here. I was trying to talk to you about EMS, and
You had been talking to me,
yes,
and we
now-
were done talking about it.
You were done talking.
Yeah, I
about
was
it.
done talking
Okay,
about
there we go. You were done talking about
and that's
it.
the
I was
perfect
not.
example, Terry. If we put ourselves in a professional
We had had the conversation.
situation
It
where
was
we
over
are
with.
professional,
There was no point in going on with it. You
Right.
expressed your concern, I gave you my answer. There was no use going on with that.
But see, that's where
Just
you're-
because you didn't agree with my answer.
You just, without even looking into it, you gave me a flat out no. That was the difference. That was the complete difference there. You weren't open to being like, okay, well, we could see what we can do. You were just about, no,
It had
there's
been
nothing wrong.
discussed. It had been, we had discussed it.
I understand.
You and I had discussed it.
I understand that, and that's how it felt to me, is you completely belittled how I felt about it.
You expressed your opinion to me. I gave you my response. How much more needed to be talked about? And it wasn't the first time you and I had discussed it. We'd discussed it previous.
well, I think that issue still hasn't been resolved, because what we found in the minutes is that you brought in the person that you hired in the executive session where you fired the person they were replacing.
I don't think we hired anyone in an executive session.
No, you brought the person that you placed in the new supervisory role, came to the commission and was involved in the executive sessions where you fired the person that they replaced.
Well, I'm not gonna reveal what was discussed in an executive session, but we did not discuss with that person firing anyone.
Well, regardless, this is exactly the scenario that we can describe that justifies the need for a professional public setting. And as Katie is saying, if she had a response from you that was unsatisfactory when the entire board is there, it gives that person with the question the opportunity to see where the rest of the board
And
stands
you
on the issue.
and you and Katie hadn't already discussed it. Is that what you're saying?
There was a, there was a-
I mean, is that what you're saying, that you and Katie had not already discussed that situation?
no, that's not what I'm
What are
saying.
you
I'm
talking
saying,
about?
yeah, I'm saying in a
No,
public,
you had already discussed it with her.
I called and voiced concerns to her as well.
And I believe Mr. Wallace, you discussed it with him one day.
Yeah, upstairs.
so Terry, why does that nullify the need to have a public setting for these types of discussions?
You want to do that kind of stuff? Do it. I don't care.
Why don't you want to?
Because I told you, I'm accessible. Anybody can walk up to me anytime and ask me anything. I'll answer it. They can call me on the phone.
What we're
I
talking,
don't need to be in a big group of people to answer a question. I answer questions in here.
so what you're saying is you don't want an audience for discussion.
There's an audience right there. There's an audience right there.
Well, that right there can't talk back.
Well, it's hearing what I say.
It is hearing what you say.
If they
but-
don't like what I say, they can contact me.
Terry, you said something about getting a mediator that was unbiased. Would you be in favor of having a meeting if you would pick the mediator?
No,
And why not?
because I've been explaining it to you for the last
But-
10 minutes. My
but if-
answer's not gonna change.
But if you had a group meeting like that, you would only have to explain it once. Where this way you're having to explain it to whoever comes in or whoever calls you or whatever, and it's your opinion rather than the complete board opinion.
Do you have a telephone?
Do I have what?
Do you have a telephone?
Yes, I do. It rings. I think the real problem comes back to the fact that you have three commissioners at a public meeting, it is a meeting. It is a meeting, because we can make decisions. We're all three there. I don't have any problem having a town meeting by myself. I mean, I don't have any problem. I'll come to a town meeting, but I'm not going to come with the other two commissioners there, because I think it sets up a meeting which we need to have recorded minutes, and there could be action taken, and I think that, but I have no problem. I've expressed my opinions to several people. In fact, I've expressed them, and before I get to my house, I'm getting calls because they're out there in social media. People are publishing what I say. I thought they were private conversations, but I guess I'm a little leery of talking to people now
So you
about
don't
certain
wanna-
things.
So you don't wanna talk to people?
I'll talk to people, but I'm a little concerned about some of the people because of what they're going to do to me.
But
I mean,
they're all
I'm
your-
sorry. I don't think that I should be able to have a conversation with a person and then before I get home, find out that the whole world knows about it. I think that's wrong.
They're all your taxpayers.
No, they weren't.
Okay.
They were not all my taxpayers. The world doesn't always pay taxes.
But
in
you
this
do
town.
know that this is a public position.
This is a public position. I understand that.
So anything that we do or say that has to do with the decisions we're making on behalf of our constituents for the county, that's all public information. In fact, we should be proud that there's good communication and people are calling each other 5 minutes after the commission meeting saying, well, this is what's happening now.
There's a lot of things that are on social media that aren't correct, too.
Well, and this would be your exact chance to get out in front of it and show up to the public meeting and say, these are the things that I feel have not been portrayed properly. And that would really show the people that you are willing to be forward and not just say, well, I'll only correct one person at a time over the telephone. I think we would show good faith in our job to be public about it. And, you know, Aljo, I know you have no...
public meetings you want, I don't care.
I know that you have no qualms about sharing personal information about me at your other meetings
Are you?
elsewhere. I've been contacted by some commissioners who have expressed some of the things that you've said about me at your other meetings in different places. So, you know, I don't think this is about our personal lives. I think this is about our public position. And if you're unwilling to give some public feedback, I think that
I
makes
did
us
not
all
say I
look
wasn't.
toward-
I said I would give public feedback. I will not do it with the other two commissioners present because I think it's a meeting it's a meeting. I would be glad to do it by myself. I have no problem.
So if it does make a meeting, if we were all there and it does create a meeting, what do we have to do?
Well, number one, I think if we have a special meeting, it has to be about a specific topic.
Okay, where are you getting that information?
Well, that's just my understanding of the law, I guess. It's the way I understood things, that when you call special meetings, they're called for a specific purpose. I may be wrong, but that's okay.
Well,
I've been
yeah,
wrong
that-
before.
Well, and that's not exactly accurate. I mean, there are special meetings that you can call, and in that case, you do still have to tell your notification list, like I was saying, but, you know, I'm not sure that anyone has been clear on what the real stipulations are, and that's why I made the motion before the public meeting. All we have to do are two things, and that is, number one, notify the people that are on the list, and then number two, if and when we go into executive session, you must have minutes of that. Any one of us can take the minutes. I would suggest Dawn would be more than willing. She was willing to come to the public meeting to at least be present, and she participated in discussion when asked questions. Those are the only...
Did I hear you say that we take minutes during executive sessions?
No. What the requirement, according to the state attorney general is, Mr. Aljo Wallace, is that when and if and when you go into executive session, you must take minutes that record the time and the reason. Remember, Dawn gave us that sheet, and it says you have to have two reasons. Number one is to discuss something that is...
That's a little different than taking minutes during an executive session.
No, what I'm telling you is those are the only requirements. That if we have a public meeting anywhere, whether it's here on a Monday, whether it's at, you know, Flyboy's Eatery on a Saturday night, whatever we do, if we're going to convene somewhere, We can choose the location and the time. There's nothing that says we have to do it any specific way. But if 2 or 3 of us would be present, we have 2 stipulations. One is the minutes have to reflect the details of an executive session. So if you don't go into executive session, you really aren't even required by the state to keep minutes, which that's why I gave a thank you to Dawn. She actually keeps minutes of everything, which has it corrected me last week. I didn't remember that clear back in December we were notified that John Grace intended to increase rental rates. So it had been several months and I hadn't thought about that. And we never discussed the amount or any details about that. So when I looked back in my minutes from January on, I hadn't seen that, and I thought, well, wow, they raised the rents. But she already had it in the minutes. So I've been thankful that her minutes are so detailed, because actually without that detail, we wouldn't know a lot of the things that we forget or, haven't kept track of personally. So again, I guess I'll just go back to reiterate, the minutes are only required to reflect the executive sessions, if you have one. You still don't understand?
I'm a little concerned about taking minutes during executive session.
It's not during the executive session.
What she's saying, Aljo, is that the only requirement of the law is that we record executive sessions. So we could basically have that you call to order, if you have any executive sessions, and you adjourn. My problem with that is, why would you pick and choose what meetings you have minutes in? Why would you not keep them consistent? And if we're going to have a meeting in which we're only going to record executive session, then why aren't all of our minutes that way?
Oh, I'm in favor of taking minutes. Obviously, I've taken it upon myself to do the recording, so I'm in favor of all the minutes. I'm just saying, you guys are presenting the argument that, oh, it would be a real meeting. It doesn't matter if it's a real meeting. We only have 2 requirements to make sure that that real meeting is legitimate. And those are very easy. I mean, basically, there's not even a time limit on notifying your notify list.
As soon as possible, but I think that he might be right. There might be a statute that says that with a special meeting, you have to specifically list a purpose. Because I know when I call people, I tell them what the purpose of the special meeting is for. So I need to look at that. I forgot about that.
You can look that up.
But I do, and I post that when we post.
Well, and I think any additional information is superb. But I happen to know that when you look up the requirements, that's not on there. I mean, we can basically call a meeting at any time for any purpose, and as long as we tell people that we're doing it, and we don't even have to tell everyone. That's what's crazy. We only have to tell those people who have verbally or in writing requested that they be notified of meetings. So pretty much if the 3 of us wanted to have a meeting on Friday night at a restaurant, all we'd have to do is tell Katie, the newspaper, which is good that the newspaper wants to be notified, but they're not going to be able to print anything between now and Friday. Well, maybe now, but let's say it was Wednesday. They're not going to be able to print anything between Wednesday and Friday night to say that we have that meeting. And this happens all the time. In fact, one of my sessions in Topeka at the seminar I attended in the fall, in November, that was a whole topic of discussion that I attended the class. It was how and when to contact your legislators, because they will be having a committee meeting and they get around the law. They convene the meeting where it's supposed to start, 9 o'clock, this room, da-da-da. They close down the meeting within 5 minutes and they announce that they're changing the location. So they all move, they continue to have their meeting, and when the people show up at 9:45, 10 o'clock, who were hoping to at least catch some of the meeting or maybe participate in the public discussion of it, they don't know where to go. You don't have to post it on the door. You don't have, those people that were coming don't necessarily know where anyone went. Maybe no one shares that information. I mean, it's a very interesting process there at the state level, and that's one of the, I attended an entire seminar talking about that. So there are ways to get around the law so that you don't even have to be available to the public. And I think we don't want to give that impression to Lincoln County that that's us. I think it would behoove us to actually stand in front of the public, say we are addressing you because we want to. But you don't want to?
How many times do I have to answer it?
Well, you haven't said no. You've said that you are available by phone, and Aljo said that he would do it as long as the other commissioners weren't there. So neither of you have directly said, no, you don't want to. If you say that, I mean, I guess that speaks volumes.
I do not intend to. How about that?
I guess my question would be, what would be the difference between that and changing one of the Monday morning meetings to nighttime? That's literally all the difference it would be.
Correct.
And opening it up to the public to talk.
Correct.
You're up, Ladonna.
Hot seat right away.
We're running ahead for a change.
No, they're just getting desperate to get someone in here.
You know, you can go on all you want to. I don't care. You go on and on and on after you've already heard the answer. You think I'm going to change it just because of something you say? No, I'm not. So,
Okay, what would you like to know?
It says you're gonna talk about Senior Care Act funding.
Okay, this is just what I remember. So, I tried to call Older Americans Act, and I was in Kansas City at a conference, and I emailed and never got a phone call or an email back. So, that's all I know.
Last week, you mean? Is
Yes.
that- yeah.
And Senior Care Act is state funded. And the patient pays a percentage of their care based on their income. They also have to be evaluated, and their care needs, their activities of daily living have to meet a certain score to qualify. You can't just qualify. Older Americans Act is federal. The patient doesn't pay anything, but there is a donation that's always accepted if the patient offers. So those are the two different ones that come out of their office.
Whose office?
North Central Flint Hills.
Oh.
Sorry if I bruised several ribs, so I can't hardly breathe, but I'm trying here. Somebody from Flint Hills has to come out and do an assessment on those people, and then they assign the patient to the program and or the cost that it's going to cost to them. Right now, I was trying to get a number for Lincoln, but we meet monthly with a provider meeting that Lincoln Park Manor attends, and as far as I know, they only have 2 patients, or had 1 or 2 patients in the last several years. They've not had very many. And the other,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but do you know why? Just
well, my other question was going to be, are there openings for new clients? I can tell you how it used to work. When we quit, we had, I think, 13 clients, and about 5 of those were on those programs.
when you quit doing home health.
There's only so much money, and it has to go over, do they do 13 counties?
12.
12. It's split amongst all those counties. And say we have someone on there and they pass away or go to the nursing home, and there's someone on the waiting list. The waiting list for Lincoln County doesn't fill that opening. The waiting list for the whole 12-county region fills that opening. Well, obviously our population is so small, so we lose a patient and Manhattan gets them, or Salina gets that spot.
You have to wait in the rotation for so
Right.
long. Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you just lose and lose and lose and lose. That's one problem. The second problem is that a lot of times the programs are frozen because they have no more money for the year, so they won't add any new patients on. That's how the waiting list gets started.
And when you say that, what you're talking about is if and when someone from Lincoln County wanted home health services, they would be waiting for that assessment to get that funding to the home health, like the funding that would come from the state or the federal level
Right.
to get them their home health care services. In the situation that you were doing, that was for medical care?
It's for housekeeping and bathing services and medication management. And those are people that are not homebound. They do not qualify for Medicare home health. That's a whole different animal.
Hold on one second. Housekeeping, bathing, and medication.
Management.
And they don't qualify for Medicare.
home health, because they're not homebound,
Okay.
or they don't have a skilled nursing need. You can only get Medicare home health if you have a skilled nursing need. Setting up medication is not a skilled nursing need. So they generally got the assessment within probably 2 weeks, but they may wait for a year to get on the program.
The funding itself.
Right, right. And most people just can't afford it. So they don't do it. I mean, it's all nice and good. The doctor will order it and they'll talk to the family about it and everybody is gung ho. Doctor calls our office. Okay, we're going to go in there and do housekeeping. You get there and they don't fit on any program because they make too much money or don't have enough need, and the family doesn't want to pay for it, or they don't have the money, and it ends right there. That happens a lot.
So if you are a nurse, like, I mean, I know some RNs that are employed by home health.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing?
They're doing Medicare home health, probably.
So what would it be an example of something that you have as a need that is Medicare covered? That's
Like
skilled?
if you had a heart attack and you have to be assessed for edema or your pulse or a dressing change or catheter care or a catheter change.
Okay.
IV meds are not considered skilled nursing because you can teach a family to do that. Insulin, giving an insulin injection is not covered because you can teach family to do that. So it has to be a very specific skilled need.
So when you guys were doing it,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say the percentage at any given time, you know, let's say one of your larger years, you had 10, 15 clients or something. What percentage of those were the skilled care issues versus just the home health, housekeeping, bathing, pain, or medication?
When I first started 20 years ago, we did Medicare home health. I had 40-some clients.
Oh, wow.
At that time. There was an issue in the health department with keeping RN coverage at that time, and I lived in Tipton, and the new administrator they finally hired lived in Salina, and you have to be on call. And I would spend, and not get paid, I would spend my weekends here in town because we had a daily person. Right, and not get paid for it. But eventually, because I wasn't the administrator then, that was before my time. Eventually, the hospital took over the Medicare part of it, and we just kept the the Senior Care Act and the Older Americans Act part of it. And then it went to the hospital, and the hospital kept it for a number of years until their cost ratio being connected to the hospital and the long-term care and all that.
Can you explain a little bit of that? Because I
don't understand.
It's been explained to me once, but that wasn't enough for me to truly grasp it.
Well, and I can't say that I truly grasp it, other than the way that hospitals are paid when they went to critical access. They can't have all these.
You can't lose money in a specific area.
Right.
It's not in-house.
Yeah, it's not in-house, so and the long-term care was losing money, I understand. And home health at that time probably wasn't losing money, but it's a whole other staffing issue and how they bill it through critical access versus when they were the hospital the way they were before. I don't understand that.
Something was explained to me where, okay, so you're going through that billing process as a hospital and you can't bill the same, let's call it a percentage. You're not going to get reimbursed that specific percentage for the same services that you're providing to that long-term care unit or even home health. So your nurses basically, when they're working in the hospital, you might get reimbursed for that portion, but they do the same job in that other wing, and you're not going to cover your cost of what they are putting into the service that they're providing there.
Yeah.
That's just my general conception.
When you guys talk about, why can't the hospital just take over the nursing home? I don't think anybody remembers the historical parts of this. The hospital did home health, and they couldn't, with all that billing, I don't understand all that at all. They had to get rid of it, and that's when Lincoln Park Manor took it over.
The home health portion.
Yes.
Because it went from the health department to the hospital,
and
then to the nursing home.
Right. And the same with the long-term care. They had a long-term care, and then it they had to get rid of it because it was losing money and their cost, whatever, because of critical access. So, you know, historically, we've tried all these things that everybody keeps bringing up, and they don't work
Well,
cost-wise.
They worked until the rules changed.
Right, every time the rules changes, it upsets
Because it
the
came
apple
to
cart.
allocating costs is what the problem was, allocating costs of the
Yeah, I
long-term
understand.
care, because it's based on square footage and
Yeah.
all this stuff, and it,
Yeah, it's over my head, that part of it.
the
is,
hospital
so-
wasn't getting paid for what they were doing because
Right, and you can't
they didn't have
continually
enough
work
space or
at a
something.
loss.
Yeah,
And then I know Senior Care Act and Older Americans Act, a lot of home health agencies don't want to take people on those programs because I think our reimbursement at the time was $11 an hour. Well, with our benefits and what we pay our
Paying out more
staff,
than that.
we were losing money on every person. Now, the commissioners agreed to do that for years and years and years. We lost money for 20 years.
So we were
You know, but-
subsidizing the health department so that they could make up that difference in pay when they were putting hours into the
Right,
reimbursement rate that wasn't gonna cover it.
Right.
At that time, there was no one else to do it.
right.
Well, but that
And
makes
now-
sense for the local
Right, we cover-
group to cover that
The health
deficit.
department should fill the gaps. That's what we do. We fill the gaps. Once the gap goes away, when you have 10 home health agencies coming in the county and we're losing money, there's no gap really. Somebody else
How
can
many do we
take
have
that
now?
over.
Do you? I know you're not in it, but
6 or 7 different
We have
ones
6
that
or
come
7.
in. We have a list and it's
I've seen you
yeah,
have
it's a
that
pretty
attached
big
to your
list.
website, don't you?
Yeah, we do. So, and then finding staff, you know, when you lose a client and you do with that staff person's time. You know, if you keep cutting, then they don't get any benefits. They don't wanna work there if they don't get any benefits, so you lose that staff. I mean, it just.
No, I understand your struggle, and
Yeah,
I'm not
it was
asking because I
big.
think you should be doing it.
No.
I just want to understand the process because I think we have an issue that we need to know where the money is going to best benefit. You know, it's our job to distribute the money. So if we're giving money out for specific purposes, we kind of need to know what the
Right.
details are.
And the payment that goes to the Area Agency on Aging is supposed to be for Lincoln County for patients who are on that Senior Care Act or somewhere in the county.
The fee that we pay
The fee
yearly.
that we pay yearly. And I have never seen the benefit of that money. I don't know where we're supposed to see it. They came and told us where we're supposed to see it, but I don't buy it. So I never thought we got any benefit out of that fee. So now they did come and do the assessments, but that is when they come do the assessment for Senior Care Act and put somebody on Senior Care Act, they bill Senior Care Act for that assessment.
They do the billing too.
No,
Like the-
no. But for their part of it, they bill Senior Care Act, so they're not doing that for free. So what our fee goes to, I have no idea. And like I said,
Okay.
I've been out of it for a while, so I
I
can't
would say
speak
it
to,
probably makes up the difference between what the Senior Care Act pays and what their expenses are.
could be, I don't know. So, but then every client you have, they charge a certain, like they might charge 1 unit, it goes by units. North Central Flint Hills charges a unit, and then we charge the units that were in there and we build ourselves. But they always got every month their units for each client. So I don't know what the fee goes to. Like I said,
Okay.
I can't speak to that, but I never thought that the county got their benefit out of it. That I saw, that.
Well, and that's interesting that you say that because from my meeting with them, basically what I found out, just to summarize it, is that they are more or less a utilization tool, like
Right.
a switchboard. And so they're redirecting people to all of these different or other organizations that, yes, receive that Senior Care Act funding or Older Americans Act funding.
Right.
But in essence, when you click on their page for our county, it just gives you a drop-down list of all these different places to contact. They don't
Right.
provide the services themselves. They're just saying,
Right.
well, here, we'll hook you up with this particular provider.
And see how we do that in the county, and nobody's ever asked, is if someone calls and wants to know about those services, we direct them to Teresa at the Council on Aging, because she has all those lists and can case manage the person is kind of what her job is. what does this person need, and here's all the things that are out there, and she can help them apply for things.
Well, yeah, that's actually what I found out.
That's-
She is like a second switchboard. So we're
Right.
paying Lincoln County to have a switchboard, and we're paying Central.
But what you don't understand is a lot of these clients don't understand it. And it's a myth that people's families are here because they're not. When we did home health, I would say 90% of them had families out of state who had very little input in their care, in helping them pay bills, and helping them do anything. So she's our only resource. My staff can't do that with people. We refer them to her, and she kind of helps people case manage. I don't know how much she does of it. I just know we refer a lot of people to her.
So my
to do
question
that.
is, why do you refer to her? Because I saw the list of what she's saying she provides, and it's the same list as North Central Flint. I mean, it's almost
Exactly,
identical.
because
She
I
was
could
local
go to
and they're in
I could
Manhattan.
spend the hours going through that with clients, but we
No,
are.
no, I'm saying, why do you not just tell them to call the Salina office for Flint Hills? Because that's what they already do with state and federal money, is the same thing what you're saying.
I never heard that the Salina office did anything for us. That is new. It used
Okay.
to be you had to call Manhattan, and a 70-year-old person who has to do the touch tone on the phone and all that is not going to call Manhattan to get help with services. They'll go without if they don't have someone to help them do that. So, and for most of the children in our county, we case manage and send them to the right places for all the kids and stuff.
Yourselves. You do that
Yes.
yourselves.
And it's a lot of time. I just can't even explain to you how much time we spend helping families. Teresa, her niche is the elderly, and that's where we refer them. So, I mean, that's just how we've done it.
But you never have referred to Central Flint Hills.
No.
Okay.
Because we have a local step. Because now sometimes if a family member from out of state calls, they might be willing to call Manhattan, but most of the people.
But you didn't even know there
Or
was a
just
Salina
here.
office.
No. I know Salina has an office, but it was never a regional office for us.
Well, they've asked me, why doesn't Lincoln County use
They've
the
never,
Salina office?
because
And
they've never.
I didn't have an answer for that.
That case,
I get their newspaper and everything, and I've never seen anything about the Salina office being available for us, so.
they used to have somebody based out of there that did the assessment.
Right, but that was it.
Yeah.
That was all they did, was the assessment.
Well,
So,
They do.
I mean, when you say they have an office, some people has a home office, that's their case manager. That's how it used to be. It was not an office that you could go to in Salina to talk to somebody about all those programs.
Well, that's what I have found out, is
Okay.
that it is. And it's in,
Well,
it's in Salina.
And
And,
they
it's,
need to come up and explain their services.
and she said she would. I would love to do that if you guys
Not
would.
Julie, somebody
have
from
her.
Salina.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
to get the real scoop, because I've never heard that before, so I did not know that was available. And like I said, it's just, I don't know. We did not have a horrible experience with North Central Flint Hills, but I wouldn't say we had a positive experience all the time.
Cindy, do you have some?
I don't think many people understand that all those agencies require paperwork, lots and lots of paperwork. And that's one of the things that Teresa is able to help them on one-on-one, do all of that paperwork, so it's not as threatening as you might have to do it on the phone, and people end up not doing it at all and not getting knowing that the services that they have, that they could qualify for without that help. And Salina hasn't had that before. If they're going to have it now, it's news, and I'll find out about
I was
it.
gonna say, have you heard that?
No.
No.
But I am going to the next meeting, and I will find out they were. I know they had staffing issues, and they cut most of their staffing in Salina.
Well,
And
it was my
Salina refers
understanding-
people to go to Teresa, by the way.
Yeah.
You're our,
Actually, that's not Salina. That's Karen. That's Karen specifically. I had a
Karen
meeting with her.
Mays.
Yeah. It's not the Salina
She's-
office.
she's
That's
in
Karen.
Manhattan.
Yeah, she's not Salina. Karen is the one that, because I was asked, why doesn't Lincoln County utilize this stuff? And it's basically because Karen has been the interceptor and redirected and used Lincoln County funded services to do things that they're already getting state and federal funds for. So we've got a
All I
nice
know
little
is that it's a
pinwheel here.
30% cut in funding from the state, so it's very slim for whatever services they are.
Well, they're not providing direct services. What they're doing is the same thing what you guys are
Case
saying.
management, basically.
Yes, exactly. And
Right.
because, I mean, there's a whole entire list of all these other places that you call when you want something actually done.
Right.
For example, home health. If
Right.
you had questions about that, they would help get you set up, which is what you're
Right.
saying you guys used to do, and now it's changed hands so many times.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you for that explanation, that helps.
Could you check on that for us, Cindy, and see what they are providing housewarming?
I have a definition, if you'd like a definition of the Senior Care Act.
Sure.
What it's supposed to do, it is funded by the state and customer cost share for services and county dollars. Those are the three places that they get money, and since the state had funding by 30%, if anybody was in those programs or even qualified for those programs. And there's a list of people who are underserved and unserved at this time.
Well, if you look at the report that we get from the coordinator for Lincoln County, most of the time is spent doing SHIC services. And that is one service that they actually do provide out of Salina, and not just pass off to a secondary, provider of that particular service. So,
Well, I can tell you how, just as an example with SRS, when they closed all the offices in Lincoln and moved them to Salina, people stopped using services. And you can say that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on which end of the spectrum you are. But it is a barrier to clients to go to Salina to do those things. The same thing. I'm not I know that the Council on Aging is not working as effectively as it could, but I hate to see it go away because it has benefit. And when you start moving everything to Salina, then it'll be a barrier and they'll just quit using the service.
right, but if we're
So-
double paying for the same
I don't
service,
think we are double paying. We're not double paying.
We are
I don't
because
think we are.
We are because I was asked, why doesn't Lincoln County have any SHIC volunteers? Well, everyone that has questioned this has been told
Okay.
that there's a special position that is called, what was the name of that?
Have you tried to
Cindy?
get a SHIC volunteer?
I have a, what was
And
the
we
name?
have a SHIC volunteer over at Sylvan that dropped out because she said it was too hard.
It's
on
too
the long way.
much.
What was
And
the
it
name
is.
of
The
Cindy?
way you sit on a computer and you do it on a webinar, and it's very, very frustrating.
Cindy, what was the name of that Teresa was saying she was as a SHIC, that she was in a certain position in SHIC? She was saying, what was the word she used? Partner, do you remember that conversation? That was in one of the meetings. She
I know
had,
she's referred to a lot by it because she's been so experienced in that area.
yeah, what was
I
it
don't
called?
know.
Like a SHIC partner or something? What was that word?
That
But
sounds like
you
something
can't-
Karen Mays might say, so I don't know.
Karen Mays, yeah.
You can't
Well, that
get a
would be who's
volunteer for
directing.
anything. I mean,
That's not
We
true.
tried,
We had a
tried,
volunteer
sure.
in Sylvan who gave a public resignation and gave the reason. And the reason was the Council on Aging and the
but for
employee.
SHIC,
Yes.
why would that affect her having people go to
Because
them?
because the Council on Aging would not help fund anything.
It's not like you can just be a SHIC volunteer.
Right.
You can't just, there's hours of
No,
classes
no, no, they
and
had
hours
already
of
been
this.
qualified in doing it for
And,
months.
well, Teresa just said she quit because of the paperwork.
Right.
No,
there's
that's,
two
you're not
different
talking about,
stories here.
you're not talking about the same person I am.
So I don't,
Vicky. Vicky
That
Lee.
had nothing to do with paperwork. She
That's
has,
what she said. That's
no,
what she said.
there's a public
And she
resignation on
only,
paper,
if I
Cindy.
If I did the research correctly, had only served 6 people maybe in the
No, there's,
period that she was a SHIC volunteer. and
Ladonna, I'm
I
telling
think
you,
it
there's a
would serve
public
a lot more
resignation on
resignation
paper.
from what?
From doing it, from doing her SHIC, but she actually presented to the council publicly that she was gonna quit
But the
because of A,
SHIC
B, and
volunteers
C.
don't have to go through the Council on Aging.
Exactly, but we are fully funding
But-
with the Council on
but
Aging, a
volunteers
volunteer,
Are
one
very
volunteer
difficult
out of all
to
of them.
find.
No, we have
We
one.
try them for lots and lots of different things, and if you have to spend, it's just like the Obamacare stuff. You know, we tried to be someone who would be a marketplace counselor and do those things. The paperwork and the qualifications are so astronomical, you can't do it, and it's all volunteer.
Well, that
Even
was not, that
extension
had
can't
nothing,
even get
that had
out of
nothing
it.
to do with it. This woman is more than capable of doing a little bit of class time and some paperwork.
I'm not saying a little bit. I'm saying like for the marketplace, they want all volunteers, but you have to be bonded and you're legally responsible if something happens. You have to give your social security number to do all this stuff. I don't know how hard SHIC is to be a SHIC person, but it's not like you can just do it. You have, and I don't have volunteers to do anything.
Well, I'll give you an
We
example.
ask for volunteers for lots of things, and it's very hard. The same 10 people in the county volunteer for everything.
I'll give you an example,
So.
and you're right. But it's always that way. It's just that we have
Right.
a smaller population, so that percentage
Right.
of 10
Well,
is a smaller
I'm
number.
not sure you could get another SHIC volunteer. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
we
not
had
saying.
one, is what I'm saying, and she gave a public resignation due to all of the circumstances that we've seen have been brought up. There are public complaints. We have all kinds of
But her
records.
SHIC should not have had anything to do with the Council on Aging. Her not.
Okay, wait a minute. You're gonna say
Why?
that, but the Council on Aging is fully funding a SHIC volunteer. So
I know, but I'm saying if she was a volunteer outside of that, the Council on Aging, I'm not sure what the connection was.
the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging.
Does the SHIC?
No, their expectation of all the councils on aging is that they find SHIC volunteers. Our council hasn't found one. In fact, the one that they did find, who was working through them to get in touch. I mean, that is the link. That is it's the information
I know,
link.
but I'm just trying to say you make it sound so easy to find a volunteer.
We had one.
It's not.
We had one, is what I'm telling you.
We need
I
to
understand
move
that.
on, we're getting behind here. We can discuss this forever now.
I know.
It's not going
I-
anyplace, so.
Cindy, maybe you should ask for that resignation. It should be on record, because it would be part of the minutes and
Follow up on all of
and
this.
yeah.
So, anything else? I know we're behind, so I'll give you my
No, thank
idea
you.
for the senior center.
Thank you, Ladonna.
Another day.
Michael? Good morning. Morning, Bob.
Morning, morning.
First of all, I have a new gravel agreement. This will be a new pit that we have tested, but we have not opened yet.
Did they sign for 1 year or more than one?
3 years.
Be a little more specific where it's at.
Cedron, section 27, just
Cedron.
south of Union Drive.
Even 27, you said?
Yes, sir. In the northwest quarter.
I move we enter into a gravel agreement with James Zachgo for 3 years, ending in 2021.
Have a motion to enter a gravel removal purchase agreement with Jim Zachgo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
The high-risk high-risk rural road sign project is progressing rather finely. They got all the bases in. They got all of the Barnard-Beverly Road completed to this point, and they've used 23 days with 17 remaining, and they should easily be done by that time. So, moving along pretty good on that. And that's all I have, except for if you guys want to review the tablet and look at that, but I figured you'd probably let Bob use it first.
I don't know if we have time today. We're running behind here already, so that's gonna take a while, isn't it?
It could, depending on questions.
Dawn, do we not have internet?
We still don't have Wi-Fi. car firewall got hit, so. I thought maybe they would have it restored to the hospital.
Let's hold that for a day when we're not quite such a full agenda.
Yeah, I don't, like I say, have a whole lot, just, guys been blading roads and we've been hauling some road rock in on some bad spots on the gravel after the rains, all that. Doing culvert repair on some of the high water washed out and stuff up northwest, so that's about all I've got right now.
Rain pretty much the same all across the county.
No, there's, prior to this morning's rain, there's places up northwest that barely have enough to settle the dust, is what
Really?
we've been told.
Inch 10 or so down in this area, Westfall area, so that area, so.
About, what, an inch and a half in that area, inch, half inch, 16,
Today?
from last night.
Got it out, start to do a few things, and then it cut loose and went to raining again, so.
It's
But
gonna be
all
off
of
and on
that,
for the next week or two, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like every couple of days.
yeah.
We need the moisture.
Yeah, we can use that. It's hard rain like last night helped things out too, on the roads, it beating them down.
Yeah. Are we going to redo 120th or what? That been a lot of complaints about 120th South. Is that gonna be gravel, do you think? We need to re-gravel it? Or
Yeah,
odd
I wanted to try to get it redone. It seemed like everything keeps
Yeah.
going
where are we
the
gonna
wrong
get
way on
the
us.
gravel for that one?
We're kinda tossing that around, which way we're gonna go. Some of that we're hoping maybe this new pit, we might be able to get some from that area on that, so. 'Cause that's it right now, we either
Long
go
haul.
up,
Yeah.
clear up west or clear back
Yeah.
down here to Lincoln. Kinda caught right there in the middle.
It's closer at the new pit than it is from Meitler's.
Some Wolf Creek, yeah.
Not much difference, probably.
Yeah, it's gonna be close, like I say.
3 or 4 miles longer, probably,
The
maybe 5,
Yeah,
one
might
line.
be.
what section is Wolf Creek in?
I believe it would be in 7,
Right here
yes.
Yeah,
Did you guys just haul?
To 120th?
Stuff up to 120th?
to here, 120th. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And the new one is up here.
yeah.
Well, that
Yeah.
brings me to my discussion, which is, I have had quite a bit of concern about, is that bridge 65? Is that 65? The one that goes across Kiowa, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah, 65. I would like to know, is that the one that we're going to apply? When do we have to have our application in for next year's funding?
I don't think they've had a call yet for projects, so.
I mean, when does that happen during the year? I'm assuming sometime in the summer. I don't know.
This should probably be here in the next couple months, I'm hoping.
Well, I would like to suggest that that's the one that we apply for because it has been reduced to, I believe what they told me is 3 ton, a 3-ton bridge, which means an ambulance can't even cross it. That is the only throughway unless you were to go all the way up to 18 or all the way south to the other highway. You'd literally have to go the highway around all the state to the state road to get back into that section. We have people living there on that road. I've had a lot of concern about that lately, questioning, because when did they reduce the tonnage on that bridge? Last year or the year before? It was
It was recently, I
Somewhat.
can't recall,
Yeah.
I think it was last year.
well, I think that's turning into a pretty serious situation. We have people living and or working farming on that road, and you cannot legally cross it with an ambulance, let alone farm equipment, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more than just a need for convenience for the people who are working the ground. It's becoming an issue of there is no other way around, especially since we have these other bridges closed. The other bridge is closed south on Wolf Creek. You can't go south on the dirt road. You'd have to go up to 18, all the way over to 232, then south, then back east. There is no other cross road.
We can definitely look into it.
I mean, how much does an empty ambulance weigh? Or I shouldn't say empty, just what's the basic weight on?
Oh, I don't.
It's gotta be more than 3 tons, right?
Yeah, right around there, I would say.
Yeah. Let alone fire trucks, et cetera, et cetera. Did we, and I know that you had when we received a letter from Katie Line about the next one down, which is 67. The first one from the tributary from the lake, the outflow from the lake. And I think did we have the engineer go and take a look at that, right? Because we discussed it briefly with him as if he had seen it.
Yeah, we've looked at it.
Is there a conclusion on what can be done? I mean, we're getting the rains now.
Kind of worked around different theories on it and haven't really settled on
Yeah,
a
I haven't.
definite one yet, but they've been researching and working with the Corps on the water outlet and stuff through there, one thing or another, just to try to determine what kind of solution we can come up with.
I mean, I would say that's another one we need to focus on, because before it deteriorates the actual structure, which is still in pretty good shape, we need to do something about the landscape there.
Yeah, like I say, we've been doing research on it, studying on it, Tanner has, so.
Maybe you could bring us some ideas next week.
Okay, you guys don't have anything else, we're gonna move on here.
Sounds good. You all have a wonderful week.
Me too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Is Dave Tangeman here?
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I was asked to come in and talk about, I believe you've looked at some proposals to upgrade security cameras here in the courthouse as well as the Sheriff's Department. And one of the questions that was posed to me was a little more explanation about digital versus analog. And what I will share with you, and this is just a sample, I have others, but unfortunately due to privacy issues, I can't share other jail videos. But what we're looking at is the top image is an analog image. That's what you currently have. And the bottom one is a high definition digital image. I think you can see a noticeable difference in the clarity and sharpness. In our world, we deal with what we call pixels or resolutions. The analog is probably around a 480 by 320. The bottom one is about 2500 by 1600. So again, the resolution is much sharper. The primary reason why we're even talking about this is that your current unit here in the courthouse, as well as the Sheriff's Department, I can no longer get parts for. Things are changing so rapidly in our industry that the manufacturer no longer even offers any support or service for the rapid eye recorders. The one in the Sheriff's Department is just a little over 6 years old, and the one in the courthouse is about the same age. May not seem like a long time, but in our world, 6 years is a long time, particularly when we see complete cycles of hardware in a matter of months instead of years. On the machine for the sheriffs, we are looking at quite an upgrade. And part of that is because the requirements have changed over those 6 years. The machines that I have proposed to the sheriff are what we call redundant or server grade recorders. The storage drives are what we call a RAID 5, which means if we have a disk failure, we don't lose any of the video data. We simply replace the drive and that data will replicate itself within that array. The OS, or the operating drive, which holds the Windows and the software, is also redundant. We have 2 dual drives, so that if we have one fail, there's a backup in place. Redundancy in the power supplies. In other words, these are machines that are designed to have maximum uptime. And if we do have a hardware failure, the video data is recoverable. In your current situation, if we had a hard drive failure, there's no recovering of the video data. And again, 6 years ago, redundancy was not even really discussed in the video world, where today it's kind of the standard, particularly in the law enforcement side of the business. We just demand more from our law enforcement officers and agencies, so that video, again, is treated much differently than it was even 4 years ago. The machine in the courthouse, again, they're all operating. It's just that if we have a failure, there's nothing I can do as far as repairing the existing equipment. We do have loaners. If there's a problem, we'll get you recording again very quickly, same day in 99% of the cases. But at that point, we would be faced with having to do an upgrade. As far as the upgrades, I have proposed to the sheriff 3 options. Option 1, I do not recommend, because it is a maximum amount of storage that I can have on that. Do you have copies of those proposals? No. You do not? Okay. That one was $13,870 or $783, and that is a one machine, but with non-redundant. In other words, I have redundant drives, but they're not expandable. In other words, if the sheriff should change or want more storage time, I can't do anything with that. I'm sorry. Okay, very good.
And there's some copies, there's just one I didn't think about.
It's kind of the entry level. It does give you, again, the redundancy. However, the OS and video are on the same drive. They're not separate drives for operating system. The one I recommend would be the option 2, which is $16,413. That does have, again, the RAID array, the independent, redundant OS drives, as well as the power supply. It's a server grade unit. And in that, we also are including, on the option 1 and 2, we are including encoders. We'll leave the analog cameras in place. We will simply encode them to digital format and move them over to the recorder. Image quality does not change. In other words, it'll record them at the same image quality that they are today. And then the last option would be a complete system upgrade, and that was $22,958. That would be for all new cameras, recorders, and new interfaces. You should know that right now we are recording audio in the jail, 2 channels, because that was the limitation of the existing machine. The new machine does have equal audio channels to camera channels, so we would be recording all 3 audio channels and could add a future audio channels as needed.
Are there more than 8 cameras in the jail?
Let's see, I believe there are 11.
So do you have a license?
11. We have a total of 11.
So do you currently have a license?
Pardon?
Do you currently have a license?
Well,
it says if you have more than 8 cameras, a license is required. Do we have that?
On your existing machine, there is no licensing because it is not digital. In the analog world, we didn't have a license.
So if we go to digital, then they have to get a license to have 11 cameras.
That's included in the proposal. Now, which one are you looking at?
Well, this is just option.
$22,000.
Is that the one?
Mine, I have 1. You have 3, and he has 2, I believe, right?
Okay, you have option 1.
Yeah.
Okay, the encoder takes only 1 camera license, even though I'm going to have up to 8 analog cameras.
Now, is that a yearly fee to have a license?
No, it's a one-time, one and done. You'll own that license for as long as you own the operating system.
No, it's a license through the manufacturer.
Through Honeywell, right. It's a license in the software.
Oh.
It's a
Okay, I
software
thought it had to do
license.
something with an operating
No,
license
no, no,
because you had.
no, it's a
okay,
software
I
license
understand.
for the
I
digital
understand now.
channel, right.
Okay, that
right,
confused me.
right. And the reason I'm having to install the 3 high definition digital cameras is for the audio. Because again, in the analog world, audio was entirely different than it was in the digital world.
So this is specific to the sheriff's office.
This is specific to the sheriff's office, yes. And then the third option would be a complete system upgrade, which would include all new high definition digital cameras and the interfaces required to record the audio.
Where are you on this thought?
My own opinion is I think we need to do a complete update on everything, replace everything. Option number 3, that way we won't have to deal with anything else or the cameras that are there now that we may have to replace at a later time.
Do you have that built into your budget?
We planned on doing that next year's budget.
So you said years are quite a long time. We invest in this, and when is the next time we're going to see you with this?
5 or 6 years.
5 to 6 years. Yeah.
I'd like to know from him.
No, actually 5 to 6 years. You know, again, my crystal ball, I can't predict what the industry, but we've kind of gone through this metamorphosis in the video surveillance world. You know, we're no longer in the analog world, we're in the digital. I mean, look at our TVs at home. I mean, the old tube sets are gone. We're now, you know, with higher definition, flat panel TVs. That industry is changing a lot, but what we are right now is what I call the resolution race. Everybody's racing for higher and higher resolutions. There becomes a point where it becomes more bragging rights than it becomes, I think, a requirement or a necessity for these high resolution cameras. I think, again, stepping into the 4 megapixel camera range, which is what I have quoted in the complete, is going to give you all the resolution you'll ever need. Because again, we're looking at very, very fixed scenes.
Is it the same system in the courthouse as what's in the jail right now?
Yeah, they're identical. No, they're identical technology. They're both Rapid Eye, which is a Honeywell recorder, and they're all analog cameras. At that time, we were in about a 500 TVL or TV lines of resolution. That was how analog cameras are rated, by the lines of resolution. So yeah, they're all pretty much on par. Now I should say, some of the cameras in the jail were there before we installed the Rapid Eye. They were from a previous system. They were mainly migrated over to our recorder.
What is the resolution on those cameras?
The ones that I'm proposing, let me get that.
Do you still have the big one?
Yeah. 2688 by 1520. I can go higher, but again, it kind of becomes kind of self-defeating. I mean, you're spending money for resolution you don't really need.
On the full upgrade, would the cameras that were already added in still be there? That had been there before?
No, they'll all be replaced because they're analog, and I want to make them digital.
Believe me, the quality of those cameras you have one there. You're getting pretty ones.
Yeah, you know, one is replacing the recorder, then we'll step up the cameras later. But then again, there's additional labor, travel, all those things that would be involved in, you know, doing the cameras at a later date. Ideally, you know, if I was to do it, I would just do it and be done. That way you've got it all upgraded to today's technology. You know, whether I'll be back in 4 years, 6 years, or 10 years, I can't predict that.
Well, I can see in the jail, I mean, we have liability issues and we need detail and specifics so that it probably pays for itself in the end.
In a way, it probably it will in the long run. And again, having the redundancy in, again, the technology that's currently installed, there was no redundancy of the storage. So if you had a hard drive failure or the video drives, I'm sorry, it's gone. There's nothing we can do to recover.
So in the courthouse, you said that the equipment that's here now if it were to have a failure, you could bring us in loaner equipment.
Right.
But you can't necessarily fix.
I cannot fix your unit. There is nobody that.
But I think the last thing we talked about, people were stealing toilet paper from the courthouse. So I don't know that we need digital cameras for that evidence, but.
That's funny,
What
I've
we
actually
needed-
had that in several court counties.
Really?
Toilet paper theft, yeah.
Wow, it must be a thing.
What we need it for is district court, and then they added the other offices, the main entrances to the building. And we have had vandalism in which somebody broke out the door downstairs or broke one pane of it. And you couldn't see. You
In the
couldn't
basement
identify
door?
them. Mhm.
When was that?
I don't know, a year and a half ago. They painted a bunch of obscenities on the little outbuilding and broke up a bunch of stuff, but.
I guess I feel like we're gonna do the whole thing. I just,
Do you wanna talk to me about the courthouse?
We haven't even talked about the courthouse. I have also proposed to the courthouse a replacement. This one here is the replacement of just a recorder. And then this one,
Is that maybe the original?
I'm trying to, give me just a second here, sort through. Okay, this one here is for a replacement with a server grade. The one there is a different recorder than what I'm proposing to the sheriff's office. It's a next model below what I'm showing at the sheriff's office, but it has the ability to handle the high definition, high pixel count cameras. The only difference is that the storage on that would be what we call a RAID 1, which is a mirrored drive. You have the choice of either using the drives all for storage, or you could take the 2 drives that are built in and have them mirrored. You have half the storage, but you would have the mirroring. But I don't think we need the 90 to 100 days or 60 days in the courthouse like we need at the sheriff's office. It's going to be more around a 30 to 40 day. And a lot of that depends again on how we program cameras, on how much frame rate. There's a lot of variables in our world. And keep in mind that all the video that you see is simply data. The higher the resolution, the higher the frame rates, the more data it requires to store it.
So this base cost is for the encoder, and this first proposal is to keep the cameras that we have, but to
Keep
change.
the cameras you have, but change the recorder out, yes.
Are these labeled like you did the sheriff, the option?
Well, if you look at the top there, you'll see one's to the courthouse, one's to the sheriff, and then down on the job name, you should see it right there. I know I put a lot of proposals on the table, and I apologize for that. I have so many different ways I can look at a project.
I forgot to ask, does any of these include the panic buttons? Or is
That's a
that-
separate system. The alarm system is separate from this.
Norman, you got something?
Is this the only company out there, or should this go out for bids?
Is this the company, did you guys install the ones that we have now?
We currently support your existing equipment, yes.
Yeah, but, there might be another company out there, better equipment, but less price. I'm just saying, you're spending taxpayers' money, so we could get a better bid.
Do we have a contract now for service, like a service contract for
Yes.
maintenance?
Yes, there is maintenance agreements.
But we don't have one now? Or she shook her
I
head
don't
no,
think
and
so,
you said
'cause
yes?
Sheriff does.
We have a contract,
For maintenance, for,
yes.
what is the, what are the term, what's the where are we at in the contract? I should say.
We just signed a contract for another year.
And that would carry forward if we did the upgrade, then,
Yeah, is there an extension term on that?
well, the
or-
terms would extend past the warranty,
Which would be,
90 days
Oh,
on the labor.
90 days in addition to the year that was just signed for.
Yeah.
And with the courthouse right now, anytime the system goes down or we need assistance, they have to, we call and we pay an hourly rate for them to come.
Yeah, he said he would come and replace. I do understand what you're saying. I believe in bidding things out.
They're having problems like that in Swain County too, getting equipment, just whatever it is. And they're finding out they do have to send it out for bid. It's a state law.
I will put on the table, and again, this is at your discretion. I have several counties that, at least in the law enforcement, when it comes to the security, have selected a vendor and have stuck with that vendor because it is more of an internal security issue than it is anything. That's, again, entirely within your jurisdiction.
Sometimes low bid doesn't mean the best. On our security system, we want a good security system. When it goes down, we call them and they immediately come to fix the problem. We can't afford to have our system down 2 or 3 or 4 days or 5 days for somebody that's not close, that's not gonna come in and maintain or fix our problem. We need to have fast service, and that's what we have with FileSafe. We haven't had any issues with them. As far as when our system goes down, we give them a call and they immediately show up and they fix the system.
I think it's just a question of the legality of how we have or have not been soliciting for bids. I don't think I understand what you're saying. We don't have to, even if we do take bids, we're not mandated to take the lowest bid. And I understand what you're saying. You're comparing quality and customer service and those things with the price. I think the question that's being raised is, what is the legal issue of our Board of Commissioners accepting proposals without bids? Which, it's my understanding that it's construction, and other certain purchases, which I would have to look up to give you I know professional services are exempt. Therefore, if we were to contract with someone for a professional service, like if he was just coming in here requesting to do a maintenance agreement, I think that's considered a professional service. But I understand what you're saying.
Any questions?
Thank you, Dave, for explaining it a little bit better.
Yes, thank you.
Does that give you a little better idea though why we're approaching it the way that we are? Okay.
But you weren't intending to do this until the next budget year, is that what you said, Mike?
I haven't checked. I don't know if we have enough on our budget for this year. I'll have to check with Donna to see if we do, if we don't, we'll put it in next year's budget.
The problem will be is if any of our system fails.
Yeah.
Then we're gonna be forced to do something, so
Well, what he's saying is we can at least get a loaner system.
we're not gonna have a loaner for 6 months though.
Right,
have
but there's an
yeah.
immediate solution. It's not like we'd be days. You're available during daylight hours to assist us
Right,
if we
the
had a
system were to
crash.
fail today, we would bring
Yeah.
a loaner in and then I would be back to talk to you.
Right, you're saying you can't just fix them and move on. There
Right.
would be a
But
replacement at that
I'm
time.
not in the position to leave one until next year, if that makes sense.
Is that something you can use your capital outlay and then replenish it when you budget for next year, or how?
He doesn't have a capital outlay.
Oh, they don't have one.
No. They have their special equipment, which is their
For
vehicle
vehicles.
funds, but, they don't have a capital outlay. We
No.
would have the capital improvement fund is, I think, where this came from to begin with, was the capital improvement fund.
I
So does that
wasn't
mean-
talking about delaying it till next year, I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to make a decision immediately.
No,
You know, there's no gun to our head today.
no, yeah. We just kinda wanted you guys to know, especially with the fact that they can't be,
We're just trying to be
Fixed.
proactive.
We're at the end of the line as far as when something happens.
Yeah.
and I think we've already been fixed twice.
Yeah, your unit's been sent in, I think we had a lightning on one, and
Yeah.
another issue on another. I know we replaced a lot of cameras on that lightning.
Which we think we got hit by lightning again, so.
I heard that this morning, a lot louder.
So,
Well, it came through some pretty good rain on the way here, so.
okay,
Okay.
I will steal the bids back, if that's okay.
Thank you for your time.
You bet,
Thank you.
Mike, I think you probably need to look for another proposal, just so we have compare
Just a
apples to apples.
comparison.
Please.
Dawn, is Patrick out there?
Yes, he is.
Patrick, I warmed him up for you.
They're just.
Come on in, Patrick. Good morning, Sheila.
Morning. I'm not sure. I'm good.
Good, how are you?
Morning,
Thank
all.
you. Hello.
Good morning, Roger.
Well, I brought you a packet of information this year. I'm gonna talk a little bit about services, and Pat can give you an update on transportation. We included a fact sheet that I'm gonna speak from. We have, as you know, a loan library that people can borrow equipment from. We have over 5,000 pieces of equipment in that. We ship it to and from people free of charge, so it's nice for people as they leave the hospital or if they want to try something before they buy it, to have that loan library. We assisted 3 people in Lincoln County to get jobs. Assisted technology to 6 people. Worked with, of course, farmers. Agribility project is a project to help people continue to farm as they acquire disabilities or their family members acquire disabilities. So we worked with one farmer again this year. We were fortunate this year, our state legislature worked with the governor to give an increase for people who provide Medicaid services. And that was the first increase that we had had for over 10 years. And so we got a 3% increase starting last July, which is wonderful, and a 4% increase starting this July. Last year we used the money to raise base wages for our staff, which was great for people. So, you know, it's difficult to find staff, it's difficult to keep staff. So we also, one of the new things that we're doing is we're partnering with KU Medical Center. Lots of people with developmental disabilities experience Alzheimer's, and of course seniors experience Alzheimer's and dementia. So we're partnering with KU Medical Center to for a grant that they have where we're going to be working in rural areas to provide services to people with dementia or Alzheimer's. We're just signing the contract now. It's a federal contract that KU Medical Center has, and they have specific people who specialize in working with people with Alzheimer's or dementia, and exercise and information and support to caregivers. They're able to bring some support to families and to people with Alzheimer's. So we're really excited to start the grant. I think it'll be good information for people. We'll partner for the next couple of years, and then KU is going to work with us to write a federal grant so that we could continue to bring money into rural areas.
So is that, are there going to be people there to help care for them, or is this mostly just to provide the
information and some therapies? We're going to start out with a couple therapists that'll be working with people. It's mostly information for the first couple of years till we get going. So we'll do some workshops and we'll have some information. We'll be able to connect people. The partnership is not only with KU but the State Alzheimer's Association. And so we've been working with them to say, hey, you know, there's not a lot of resources in rural communities, so what can we do? And so I think it's just the beginning, and we'll see how it unfolds, but it's pretty exciting. It's really nice when, you know, state organizations commit to, and hospitals commit to rural areas. So I think it'll be fun to see it unfold. We're not quite sure where it'll go.
I have a couple questions just before you continue. to enhance my understanding,
Sure.
because we have several organizations that work through KDADs, that work through, other state and federal funding options. And we were actually just discussing this earlier today, so it's good that you're here. Is OCCK, can you explain a little bit, I mean, the general term is disability, okay? Are we talking encompassing physical to mental disabilities? Are we designating a medical disability or an aging disability? I'm saying, do you deem someone disabled if they're aging to the point where they're kind of struggling within their own home?
Sure.
Even if they're not maybe wheelchair bound due to an
Sure.
injury or something like that.
Sure.
So you're facilitating services from the aged to where they can't particularly do every last thing, but they're trying to remain independent. I know that's part of the mission, is to keep
Right.
people in their home.
Right.
So, because I'm reading on here, skilled nursing, physical therapy, speech therapy, social work. So when someone is soliciting through you for services, are you helping direct them for, I'm just going to use an example of what we talked about earlier, SHIC counseling, things like that. Is that something that you provide?
We do have a SHIC counselor or two on staff. The area agencies on aging, of course, have a large amount of expertise, have SHIC counselors on staff, but we certainly do. The history of OCCK, we used to serve people with developmental disabilities when we began.
Just developmental?
50 years ago.
Okay.
And then in 1980, we serve people in rural areas. So as we started reaching out to people, we had people with other types of disabilities start to say, hey, can you help me with budgeting, or can you help me with this? So in 1984, the board made the decision to broaden who we serve. So since that time, we've served anybody of any age. So we serve birth, infant toddlers, in some cases, clear on up to people who are aging and acquire disabilities. So we try to run the gambit because we're in a rural area. It's not like there's a variety of different service providers, and so we've really tried to get as many services to people as we possibly can. So yes, it would, as somebody leaving the hospital, for example, that's a short-term disability. If I've had hip surgery.
So it's short-term, it's long-term, it's elder care. I'm seeing, what did I just read on here? Household and personal chore services. We were kind of talking earlier about the difference between Medicare-covered home health versus these types of home.
Right.
So how do you facilitate something like that for Lincoln?
Well, people would call and we would try to come out and assist. We have to hire staff. We have to do all of those things. So home health, actually what we're trying to do with home health and chore services is work more in rural areas. So example, in Belleville, we get referrals from hospital. We're partnering with the hospital and the doctors to see how do we, because when you get in rural areas, it's very hard to get home health there. So we're trying to figure out how do we do that.
It was brought up earlier that maybe some of the paperwork is cumbersome. And, how does someone get from the point of saying, okay, I do need help, to, you have an office in Salina. So how does someone get from the point of deciding they need some help to contacting you to getting that, we used the word case management earlier. Do you do that? Is that?
For some, only for people with developmental disabilities.
Developmental.
Do we do case management?
What about physical?
No, the MCOs do that right now. The managed care, the people that can care, and it can care, the state, KDADS, contracts with 3 insurance companies, and that's can care. So case management is provided through those insurance companies. So right now, it is extremely cumbersome.
Is that only through can care that you can get their case management services, or can anyone get case management services regardless of whether they have individual insurance, Medicaid, Medicare? Do you have to qualify?
You have to qualify for most forms of case management.
So basically you start with getting an assessment. And this is kind of what we found out from North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. Everyone can get an assessment, and you guys perform an assessment.
We perform
for
assessment
mental
for people with
developmental disabilities.
And the AAAs perform assessments for people with physical or seniors or to people with brain injuries. And that's where it all starts. And with that, and of course Medicaid, or for Medicaid eligibility, and then you wait for services sometimes, and sometimes you get right in. And then, of course, you work with the providers like OCCK, like other home health departments, those kinds of things, depending on what you need. The paperwork is difficult. It's difficult right now in Kansas to get Medicaid. It's difficult to get through that maze of it's arduous, actually. So yes. So let me see here. I think, do you want to talk a little bit about transportation?
Sure. Well, part of our diversified services that you and Sheila were talking about, of all the waivers that we serve, one thing that promotes independence, which is, you mentioned, part of OCCK's philosophy, is of course access to affordable, accessible public transportation. OCCK has been a leader throughout the state for a number of years. We've been providing public transportation probably ever since we were formed in 2000, here in 1970. The growth came 10 or 15 years ago when we really started to branch out, and people finally realized that we provide public transportation to the general public, not just people with disabilities, not just the people we serve. Our newest venture, which you probably heard about, there's also a flyer in here, is the 81 connection route that we started last August, which is a round trip, 3 times a day round trip service that goes through Belleville, stops in Concordia, the 8124 junction, and then it goes into Salina. And we develop it to be very user-friendly, where you wouldn't have to stay in any one location for over a 2-hour period of time. When we developed this and put this in place, we looked at it as a way to coordinate and to streamline public transportation, so the surrounding areas, especially counties that's part of this, would benefit. They'd be able to spend more time within their county providing public transportation than maybe driving all the way to Salina. I know Lincoln is a little bit distance between here and of course the 81 highway, but you could go into Minneapolis, and there's a drop-off place in Minneapolis, and we could take the person into Salina.
Has our county bus ever met the bus?
I can't answer that. I think so, but I can't for sure answer that. But it certainly is a possibility. In the future, we're going to start looking at more feeder routes that are going to feed into the 81 connection route. That would be expanding the services that would benefit all of the northern counties. But mainly, it was developed to promote better partnership and better access to people in rural counties, so they wouldn't have to make the long trip. You might not have to go all the way to Concordia. You might not have to go all the way to Salina. Again, we develop it to be passenger friendly. And of course, obviously, the 200 rides a month we're doing now is both job related and medical. Of course, Salina is certainly the most regional medical facility, and that's probably the primary use. But once you get to Salina, we set up the system that if you need assistance, if you need to go to the hospital or ComCare or Manor Clinic, we will meet the 81 connection bus at the transfer station, and we would drive you to that location, and then arrange to pick you back up and make sure you get back to the transfer station for the return trip back. Also, if you want to spend any time in Salina at all, we would give you, who have a passenger, a free daily pass on the fixed route service, so you could go anywhere within Salina, and then get back to there's 2 transfer stations within Salina, on 7th and Walnut, which is the main transfer station, or you can be at Walmart to catch an 81 connection ride back. Medical, in case something goes wrong that you can't catch the ride back, we will transport that person back to their home to their home. So it's been very successful. We're looking at even expanding this further with more feeder routes, but we've been very happy with it. I think we gave 400 and some para rides within Lincoln County this year, and as we age and the demand for more sophisticated medical services, that's going to continue to grow, I think. So pretty much that's it.
So if someone from Lincoln County wanted to utilize the bus, basically what you're saying right now is you'd have to drive to Minneapolis.
At this point, right now, yes. Yes. Yes.
We just started this in October, and so we're just
Yeah.
getting it up and going. There's a mobility manager that's reaching out to all the communities to say, how can we continue to build on this? But
So what is a para ride? Or para transit?
Para is on demand when you call up and make an appointment. It's scheduled services.
So you're saying 410 different times last year a Lincoln County person scheduled a ride from Manhattan, or from, excuse me,
From Lincoln.
from Minneapolis?
Yeah.
no, not on.
Not
this-
Minneapolis, no.
That's 81 Connection.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, this is just the bus route. You're saying 410 rides were given
Times.
somewhere
Right.
by OCCK, somewhere within or from Lincoln to Salina or something like that.
For instance, dialysis patients.
Yeah, that's what we refer to as the Metavan program,
Okay.
which is that little white minivan that runs around, and generally it's either dialysis or the cancer center. So that is an on-demand scheduled ride in advance. We do subscription if somebody has ongoing,
So when
let's say
they
dialysis.
when they opt to use your bus, then they're taken to their appointment or wherever
Yes.
that may be.
Yes.
But then do they have to wait? I mean, I'm assuming there's more than one person on the bus, so.
Generally, there's just one for the service. This is just a
So
minivan.
this is a single.
Yes.
the-
Our para operations are generally single ridership, and it's almost entirely medical related. So we get them to their appointment at that designated time. They let us know when their appointment is over, and we turn around and take them immediately back.
And is most of that you're taking people from Lincoln to Salina to receive services, or is it?
Medical? No, medical. Not OCCK.
Medical service, I'm sorry,
medical
yes,
service.
I didn't mean that,
Yes.
medical services, but
Yes.
I'm saying it's not,
Yeah.
you're not taking people from their homes in Lincoln to our local hospital or our local clinic.
We could.
Or our health department.
We could, yeah, if they ask.
But are they? I mean, we don't know.
The demographics and exactly the ridership of today, I don't know. But anywhere within the Sunflower Health Network, which Lincoln County is part of that.
I'm just trying to understand, we're a struggling county and we're shrinking and we're paying out for services locally, like our health department and such. And then you're telling me that we're paying you to come and haul our residents off to Salina to receive medical treatment. So it's kind of.
Indirectly, you're paying us through KDOT taxation. This is a Kansas Department of Transportation funded project. The $6,000, $7,000 you give the OCCK does not subsidize public transportation. It is for people with disabilities and the people we serve. We've always had the philosophy that public transportation is going to have to stand on its own. This is a program 70% matched by Kansas Department of Transportation. We have to come up with a 30% match. So I guess you could say some of the money you give us could be used for public transportation, but generally you're not directly paying us for that. We're in partnership with Salina Regional Health Center. Our Metavan program is totally subsidized by Salina Regional Health Foundation, so it doesn't cost the riders that go from Lincoln to Salina, going to a Salina Regional Health Services facility is at no cost. And every medical provider in Salina, with the exception of dialysis, is basically a free trip.
But we're not coming out and transporting to your health department.
No.
I mean, your local transportation's gonna do that.
Yeah.
This, mostly it's like the dialysis cancer center type of folks where people have to come for specialized treatment.
You do most of the in-county transportation. Now, if we get called to do it, we will.
So what percentage of that 410, because that's more than one a day. So what percentage of that is in county?
It would be very small,
Very,
but we
very
can
small,
find out.
It'd be very small. Most of us go into Salina, most of us are either dialysis or Tammy Walker Cancer Center.
You know,
Almost all of it is.
we know folks here, and so if we get a call to transport someone from somewhere in Lincoln County, we're gonna call and say, hey, have you called
Yeah.
your local folks?
Generally,
That wouldn't make
yeah,
any sense.
Generally, your local provider is gonna take somebody to the Lincoln County Hospital. Now, if they can't, we will, but generally they are.
Well, our local bus also makes trips to Salina.
Sure they do.
Right,
Yeah,
they do,
yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Mhm. But we think to keep people within the communities, and that was one of the reasons, I might have said this before, that we developed a service. Public transportation can keep people within their communities if they have access to the specialized medicine that your local county might not provide. If not, what's happening, they will move from here and they will move closer to medical facilities. So.
So going back to some of these home care services, is that something that you provide, or you just provide the support to do the paperwork to get a company that will come do these home care services?
If there's a local health department, for example, that provides those services already, then we would not duplicate those locally.
Well, just to give you an example, we don't have home health anymore at our health department, correct.
Okay,
And actually,
okay.
our hospital's not doing it either anymore.
Okay.
So, but what we were told this morning is we have 6 or 7 companies that come to Lincoln County from surrounding areas. So in that case, I guess what I'm saying is you facilitate the help to walk someone through the paperwork, or
We provide the service.
you actually provide the service?
We have a home health
And do you bill private insurance, Medicare, and
Mm-hmm.
Medicaid?
Depending on the person, sure.
So you're potentially one of those 6 or 7 services that someone could find within our county to
Yes.
do home health.
Yes.
It's a home health agency, yes. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
We are accredited certified home health agency.
But we have worked, we have worked real carefully with health departments to not,
Mhm.
if there's a health department working, then we'll go to another county, because the problem is, in rural areas, health departments, or home health isn't available. And so, if it's not available, like in Belleville, it's not available now, the health department is,
So do you help them do all of that paperwork to get you rolling with the insurance coverage
Sure.
and things like that? All they have to do is call and you will take care of that.
it has to be a referral from your doctor.
Yeah.
Of course, we don't have any control over that. We don't have any control over the MCOs or CanCare. But we certainly would help you
Oh
with
yeah, you can't control their coverage, but if they do have some sort of coverage, you're saying you bill any of those above.
Right.
Private insurance, Medicaid, Medicare.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So do you get referrals from Lincoln, and by whom?
I don't recall a lot of referrals from Lincoln at this point.
Really?
No.
Hmm.
And if there are 6 or 7 here, of course, that would make sense. If there are 6 or 7 home health agencies here, like you said, they're probably not gonna be a lot for any one provider.
Well, we were just told that we have a hired position where someone is actually doing the intake work for these people who may potentially want to receive those kind of services, and I'm hearing then that person is not referring to you. I don't know where they're referring to, but we don't provide the services ourselves. We're paying someone to basically be the switchboard to find you.
Ah, okay,
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay.
And I see that there's not that connection there, so that's interesting to me.
Well, we'd be glad for that connection to be there. I mean,
Stephanie come up, our home health director.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably has been.
Well, I think you're even listed on the list that comes from Area Agency on Aging as far as an option. So if you call Area Agency on Aging, they contact you, they say this individual is looking for home health services, boom, that is already, it's a direct line.
Right.
Good, yeah, that's what I learned, and so I'm right, okay.
Yes, you
You're
are,
helping me make sure I got my facts
Yes,
in order here.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
But again, the area agency would only be through probably the initial part.
right,
And
well,
then you move on to a
if you're
case
doing the
manager.
billing for yourselves, then you're gonna handle it from there on. They're basically just making that connection to point someone in the right direction who provides this service in
Right,
this area.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
We also do a lot of diverse things like job training and
Sure.
We are, we've been working with lots of folks to get jobs. It's really exciting, for people to go back to work or find a job or, I mean, you know, some people it's go to work for the first time, like, you know, we partner with Lincoln Schools and Jewel and Beloit, and we do a transition fair for students with disabilities. So we, you know, those kids get to go see different employers and what they do and what all happens and learn about interviews and all those kinds of things. So yes, from kids that are transitioning from school on up to anybody that needs help to get a job, absolutely. Yes, so. Other questions for us while we're here?
No, I do appreciate your work, though.
Yes.
The family has benefited greatly from you.
Thank you, Adjourn.
Yes.
Did you volunteer last year to come back, start going to the?
No,
transit?
no,
You didn't,
no.
didn't you?
I just got
I heard that wrong, huh?
Too many irons in the fire.
I understand that, yeah.
And you have someone, the family that's on dialysis 3 times a week to salon. It's a burden.
It's tough to get there
Yes,
that
it is.
much.
It is, yeah.
Everybody's
And
working.
cancer treatments, and, you know, it's,
It's important services we
Yes, it
offer. I
is.
mean, it's amazing, the stories you hear of people that don't have transportation to these medical necessities. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's expensive to keep going.
But we're glad to do it.
Okay, if there isn't anything else, we'll
Thank you.
get out of your
Thank
hair,
you.
and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you again.
Yes. And thanks for the information on the breakdown. That was extremely helpful
You're welcome.
to see the numbers.
If you need more, I mean, holler at me. I think my email's somewhere.
I think it's on the side here, maybe.
Good, or my phone
Thank
number.
you.
Yes.
Sure is. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for Aljo. Nice seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. See you.
Okay, Shirley, I think you're up next.
Good afternoon, huh?
Yeah, morning, still morning.
Okay. I have 3 things for you. The first thing is, you have questioned us about having an audit done and whether we were compliant to that. This is a meeting from our senior center in February. The motion was made for us to comply with the audit. And I just wanted to prove the point that we are in, you know, we want to do the audit, but they have not contacted us for that. We've been calling to the Hayes people that you told us about last week, and we've done it like 3 days in a row, and they have not replied back to us. So one of the members contacted Columbine, Riedel, and they're in Ellsworth, and they would give us a lower price, and we would gladly do the audit with them, if that's approved with you guys.
Did they give you a quote?
He's in the process of that, because it was kind of late Friday when we talked to him, but they said they would be, and we told them.
They do that.
That they do that.
And that would be under the same, like we talked about before, if LCCA paid for the audit, we paid for mileage.
Mileage.
I don't have a problem with using a different firm as long as we're doing the same audit everybody else is doing.
Well, it's
You mean the time-wise, like how many years, or what do you
Yeah.
mean? Was it 3 years?
Complete audit of 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, and they're gonna come to our facility to do it. But we want to show you that we want to get along. We want to do what you request. And like you said, we tried contacting those people in Hayes. And
What
they
is
just
the name
wouldn't.
of the Ellsworth auditor?
By
Clubine.
Clue with a C?
C-L-U-B-I-N.
Are they still using that name, or did they change the name?
And Rettle, R-E-T-T.
I know it changed hands.
Thank you. It's your odd name.
Although, you know what, I called this Adams.
Baron Ball and whatever.
And the other one. And they told me I needed to talk to Megan and that she was out of the office till Monday. So I do think we need to continue to contact them this week in time or two. And if we still can't get response, that'd be 5 or 6 tries.
Yeah,
Then we'd go over to Ellsworth probably, if that, whatever y'all think.
Laura, write that name of Hayes down, because I think I know.
And I don't know, that was the name John came up with, I don't know.
Well, he was right, except there's one in front of the one
It's
that's
Adams,
it's 4.
Brown,
Brown,
Baron
okay,
and
all right.
Ball.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure
I
of the
might be able to
spelling.
make a contact. I may know somebody that works there.
Okey doke.
That was the name that John came
right,
up
thank
with,
you.
I'm not 100% sure that's.
Yeah, we just went and tried calling them, and you know they, like from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Friday he called late afternoon and he said, oh, they're closed at noon. But we've tried and left messages with this Megan, and nothing's being done. But we wanted to show to you that we are making an effort to do what you want.
Yeah, okay. And
Okay?
tax season's ended, so they sometimes take a
Yeah.
about a month or
Extra
6
bump.
weeks,
Yeah.
bump. Yeah, they do. They're kind of shut down a little bit. So,
Okay.
but I will call the person I know and see if they
Okay.
are associated with this firm. They're an
Okay.
accountant. So.
Okay, but we did make that motion in February. And we also made a motion Tuesday at our senior center that we would pay the mileage. But I can't give that to you because those minutes won't be approved till our next meeting.
That's fine, sure.
Okay? I have, and you don't have to do much with this yet, but we have our 2019 budget for you to review and discuss, or whatever you want to do with it.
Fund it, huh? You want it funded, Shirley?
We want funded.
Okay.
These are some of the things that we were looking at. For 2018, we still have not been funded anything. We're putting out our own
You still
money.
haven't received any money? Okay.
Nothing.
All right.
We're funding ourselves. And we are working hard at our concession stand. The girls' softball has ended, and we're getting ready to gear up for the rec program. That I think they're saying we should probably have at least 5 and maybe more. And we have a quilt drawing for Community Day. The ladies have a beautiful quilt this year, and we have that going on. And Lorelei Dole is we've applied for the grant that we had for a director of activities out of Hayes, which that didn't work the last time, but we have reapplied, and she's been approved as our new director for the senior center for activities. And we're happy. She's probably at the center 5 days a week, that we can be open a lot more and participate.
So while we're on that subject, then what I have learned from my meeting with Area Agency on Aging from North Central Flint Hills, they will come and do, I mean, for any kind of program, really. I mean, you can basically ask them to come and do a seminar, a talk.
I tried here a year or so ago, I tried to get them to come because they had some specialized program that they were working on, but they said we didn't get into it at the right time, but we could have some lawyer come, and, you know, it just never would work out.
They also provide legal services,
Yeah.
you know, legal
Legal
services.
services, and
yeah,
they have a lot of stuff.
Yes.
But right now, you know, it's just getting us geared up to be able to do that.
Right.
Into their, and I've been emailing them. We finally got the, they have a newsletter that they put out that tells us all the stuff. At that point in time, the lady that was coming in to visit with the LCCA would give them that at the end of the month, and so anything that was going on in that information, we were not receiving.
But you didn't, none of you got it in the mail?
We do now, we get it in email. I contacted them several times and rattled some cages, and we do have it now. And then it's there in time for our meeting, like Tuesday, and all the information that is in it is current, it's not done.
Maybe you had to ask for it, because my mother used to get it
Yeah.
for years.
I do have a mailing list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're on it now.
Yeah.
So we have the caregivers newsletter for Alzheimer's, and now we're on this other, both of them.
I think her point was just when we were trying to get it through the LCCA, we never
We
got it
never
until
got
everything
it.
was over.
It was all
So
done.
we contacted
You're always a month behind.
Right,
Yeah.
so we contacted them directly so we could get it before everything happened.
Yeah, I was surprised it didn't, because my mom always got it in the mail.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you look at the website for Area Agency on Aging, they have each of the 12 counties, and they have a link. So you just click on the link for Lincoln County, and it gives you a breakdown of someone to contact and the contact information for any and all of the
Last
services.
time I checked on that thing, because we went in there to get that newsletter,
Uh-huh.
that newsletter was 2016.
You mean what they had printed on the website?
You could go in and get that newsletter, that thing that they give to, I can't think of the name.
I know
of it.
what you mean.
But that, I went in there thinking I could get that for our next meeting, and when I went in there,
It was all out of date.
it was all, everything was all out of date. And I mentioned that to them when I called, that they need to upgrade some of their website stuff because it was not very current.
Mhm. Well, I think some of the stuff that they have on their website listed under Lincoln County is the same stuff that Ladonna has on our link through the health department. So it's all the same
It's-
providers that come to this area, but just so you have a centralized
Right.
contact point.
But there's a lot of stuff going on, you know, like they're getting geared up for the sunflower thing in Salina in September, and all that information's coming out now, which we never got before. So,
Okay.
we're making strides, I think. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Can do anything? If you have questions on our budget, feel free to call me.
Okay, we'll look through them.
Okay, thank you.
We're just kinda getting started in the budget
Well, that's what
process.
I assumed, but I wanted to be early so that
That's
give you
good,
time to
always good to be early.
run through it. And if you have questions, we also went through the web fund and qualified for a web grant for a reclining lift chair. And we're in the process of getting that found and purchased. So we're excited about that. They also told us to reapply next fall, that they would probably fund we want a overhead projector and screen so that like we can pull things off of the internet like the commissioner meetings.
Actually,
And sit there and
They're
they
pretty
can
dang
see it.
bored.
Actually, Shirley, I read that letter today, and we don't even need to apply, we just need to bring more detailed
Okay.
information to the July meeting, and they thought that they would fund it then.
So we're kind of excited with that, being able to use our computer in other aspects. Thank you, sirs.
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Madam.
Hi, madam.
Thanks, Shirley.
You come in or?
I'll probably come later.
Okay, I'm gonna have.
Thanks.
Is John out there?
I gotta follow up on Mr. Tangeman's comment about discretion. Now
About
think
what?
about Mr. Tangeman's word discretion. Now think about this. And I run across this here a long time ago. The Supreme Court ruled over 200 years ago, if there is a controversy or conflict, they have the right to reject any and all rulings. It's over 200 years old ruling. It stood for 200 years. Federal and lower appeal courts have even agreed with it. This ruling stands. So, yeah, you might have discretion, but the Supreme Court of the United States also has the discretion to overrule if it's a controversy or conflict.
Are you talking about on our determination of whether we bid out for purchases?
Anything.
Yeah,
It's a broad ruling.
I think the Supreme Court has the last say on about anything.
They do, and we don't understand that. We just,
But it takes a long time to get there.
no, don't.
It takes quite a while.
It can be done in 24.
By the time you go through all the appeals processes and everything to get there, why?
It didn't take long on that, election results, did it?
Well, it still had to go through the appeals courts before it got there.
It went straight through it. Who was that? Did Bush ended up winning the election, remember?
Yeah.
24 hours to get to the Supreme Court. Yeah.
But that was after it went through the appeals court. Yeah, I think it did.
Straight to the US Supreme Court. I mean, it was pushed through.
It's also a fairly big issue.
Oh, tax abatement. Is John coming, do you know?
As far as I know. I don't think so.
He can start when he gets here. I would ask for a 5-minute break.
5-minute break?
Yes.
We can do that.
If it was what, an old appointment?
Yeah, that's a new one.
Yes.
All it is that little bitty fly stuff. Yeah. And every time they grade it, it just makes it worse instead of better. And all we, no, it's just real fine stuff. And we get all that fine dust coming in our yard because all that fine stuff blows off. And just then let heat stay on there. And once they grade it, it'd be
About
great if they never
400.
graded before it didn't get soft.
Yeah,
But once
it's
they
really
grade
nice,
it,
but
it
it's
listens
storm.
it. There's a semi trying to get up to the hill over by our house the other day. He had quite a time getting up there.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks they've been home. See, they had a big pile. They had a big pile of it out here at the West County lot, by the State Department.
Oh, yeah.
2 weeks ago, they hauled that all out when we had the last rain.
Oh,
And then here, they hauled that all out and had that stockpile there for over a year. Last week, they were hauling out the core site, hauling back around there and restocking the same material back up. It's like, we paid the loader money, they lock up if we don't use it. I mean, they already had it there, so why would you?
It's no good.
What are you doing?
It's no
Look
good.
at the pictures of my kid.
It's good if you never disturb it, but
Here.
once you disturb it, it's just slush.
I need to have him in
So
here.
this.
I took these to my nephew's graduation, but I didn't show him. They took 5 minutes. I don't know what they started up when I got here, they were doing highway department, and then they did the jail and courthouse surveillance discussion.
They only had
OCCK presented, and
They
then
still only had
Shirley
10
presented. She gave her a budget proposal for 2019, and then she talked about the fact that we're still trying to get an audit, but we can't get the auditor to return our calls. So we're kind of trying to work through that. But I think it's just bad timing. I don't think it's anything malicious because, they told me this gal was supposed to talk to us on vacation. I think we can keep trying.
I don't think they need.
I think we can get her. Of course, my house is so torn up right now. I'm finding
I didn't say I liked it. I just said it is what it is. I just don't stress over it. Stress out some of
Contract.
I actually did want a little bit.
No, I finally found it and signed it.
Billy Reinert, that's the worst he's ever seen.
Not a good thing. Not a good thing for you.
I hope Jason's on top of all of it, because I don't know anything. I've got city council in mine, so.
Exactly. Not about that. Not about you.
My little girl's at at 4:10.
Oh, it's not like.
Yeah, that's for the, yeah, that made a difference, dress rehearsal.
Is it here in Lincoln? Or is it Danvers, or is it?
They're all here, the rehearsal and the program.
It is, it's good.
Yeah, it's nice, but I live on that manor, I live there too, same one.
We have a couple tax abatements. One on Charles John Webke, Jolene Webke for a taking off the solid waste fee on an uninhabited house. And the other is Joe W. Lesser. Is a tax protest at a net change of $16.60.
What are your numbers again, Dawn? Oh, they're on the other page.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I see
they're
them.
someplace on the other one,
But these say 17, is that right?
but, yes, cause it's the tax year 26.
From that year, okay. I move to approve tax abatements 2017-26, 25 and 26.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 These bills from Lincoln Park Manor, do you know what this means, return air grill?
Return air grill, it's on the ductwork. I don't know.
Return air, okay, not to return it, okay, I see. The vent, gotcha. Guess we can approve the bills, 2697 and 1099 from Lincoln Building Supply for LPM.
Did you see this?
So I'm assuming that the entire board received and read the latest correspondence from the Lincoln Senior Center. Did you want to have some feedback on that?
Are you talking about the email they sent out?
Yeah, we received a letter, an email, well, it was minutes we received from a special meeting called by the Lincoln Senior Center.
Yeah, I remember reading it. It talked about the council on aging moving out, had to do with the phone and internet connection, and it stated in there they didn't get any notice, but for a month they'd been talking about what they were going to use that room for, so apparently they knew it, because they had been discussing what they were going to use the room for.
Did you have any feedback, Al Jones?
What now?
Did you have any feedback on
Do I
that
have
email?
any feedback? No, I didn't. I read it.
Well, I'll read it. It lists who was present and absent, and the meeting was called to order at 10 a.m., and the following concerns were discussed. Lack of notice from the LCCA about the non-renewal of rental lease. No formal notice has been given. Although the COA's Council on Aging's plans to move had been approved by the Council on Aging Board the previous day. The lack of notice from the LCCOA concerning the phone and internet service. The fact that the Council on Aging was moving and taking the service with them was admitted only when directly asked. While communicating with AT&T, Becky, which would be Rathbun, learned that Teresa Richards asked AT&T to disconnect the Lincoln Senior Center phone number on Monday, April 30th. Becky is working with AT&T to keep the Senior Center's phone service. The presentation of a budget by Liz Winkler on behalf of the Lincoln Senior Center. Mrs. Winkler reported on an online video that the Lincoln Senior Center did not present a budget, so she prepared one. Numerous errors were discovered by the Council on Aging member Nancy Nitsch, so the budget was tabled. It was noted that the Lincoln Senior Center had not been asked to prepare or present a budget to the Council on Aging. It is the intention of the Lincoln Senior Center to prepare and present a budget prior to the next Council on Aging meeting. In the past, budgets have always been due to the Council on Aging in May. We were not notified of the change in due date. It was unanimously agreed by all present that the Lincoln Senior Center must be represented at Council on Aging meetings to protect our interests, and that the county commissioners be made aware that these actions, which we deem to be subversive and malicious, have occurred. I would say it says a lot more than they were talking about the use of the building, in the room in the building. I think the problem is what they said was that the council approved the move the day before it happened.
The council discussed moving the month before, and the council decided to go look at the building and make sure it was adequate, which I assume they did.
Have you ever been in there?
In the building?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how is that bathroom adequate?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. It's no more inadequate than most restrooms, unless it's something that's been specifically built for handicap accessibility.
Maybe I haven't been in there lately. I think what the letter is addressing is that all of the changes took place, and then the board approved the situation, which we've heard this at our table repeatedly for years, that a small group of people, including the employee, constantly on every new board is making these decisions. And the approvals don't come, and these changes and decisions aren't known to the group until it actually happens, or it's already in the works.
My understanding was that the entire group was going to go look at the building.
No, Nancy Nitsch sat here last week and said she was asked to go and look at it.
Well, I think they asked everyone at that meeting, that was at that meeting, to go view the building to see if they thought it was adequate.
Were you at that meeting?
Before they talked about
Yeah.
doing it, but Mike and Nancy left the meeting, so they may not have heard it.
Did everyone go?
I don't know if they all did or not.
Were you at the meeting?
I was at the meeting, but they didn't go during the meeting.
But I'm
They were
saying-
going to go on their own.
And they didn't want you to go? Or you weren't part of that process?
I was aware of it. I've been in the building. I know what it looks like. It
Well-
hasn't changed any in the last 30 years, so.
I think the point is that this is a recurring theme that we have from this group, which we appoint. And the turnover is so high there. I've been told by members personally, they're in there for the first year. They just catch on to how things are done. Most of them don't even spend their second year term there because they're so frustrated or overwhelmed or tired of the situation that they leave. I mean, we've had...
That's not accurate.
Oh, yes.
There may be some of them that don't stay for the second year, but not the majority of them.
We have had public resignations with public speeches given. I sat at a meeting 3 years ago where the woman detailed and outlined everything that the Council on Aging had done and the way it had treated people and the mismanagement of the funds and everything else when she gave her public resignation. This is not a new thing. It's been a theme that we have yet to do anything about. And I think what we didn't address in the letter is that you know, the Council on Aging took it upon themselves to combine their phone and internet service with the Lincoln Senior Center, and then they had it shut off. I mean, that's a purposeful, deviant act that
They
does
didn't,
not.
they were utilizing the Council on Aging's internet service.
They
There
were-
was no,
They were
the router
bundled.
was in the Council on Aging office and it reached into the senior center.
They were bundled. Yes, it was. Why else would there be one service?
Becky Rathbun was there and was told, and I was sitting there when they were told that she would have to find out something. She told me she forgot about doing it, and at the last moment, then she had to get around that. She said that she was even trying to get Eagle Communications, which I believe she's on some committee for. So I don't know why there ever was a problem. I know the phones continue to ring.
The point is, it was shut off. So regardless of who hadn't followed through on continuing the service, or who didn't pay the bill. If the bill came and the person who was paying it was absent, then it would be someone else's responsibility to pay that bill. You don't shut off the service. In fact, this is not the first time this has happened. It's happened in the past.
Did she say the service was shut off?
My assumption would be that the service was moved.
The service was moved.
But the question would be, was the Lincoln Senior Center phone answered, this phone is no longer in service when you dialed it, or did it get moved to the Council on Aging's new location?
But
The other
it
thing
wasn't
that I would say that
unknown.
I think is a little unfair.
It wasn't unknown that that service was bundled. It was to the same building for two separate entities. That wasn't an unknown factor that you just, oh, whoops, we moved.
It's also obvious from their letter that they didn't realize this was happening.
Yes.
Well,
Which seems rude.
That's the thing that, you know, the
That
thing
is.
that I think should have happened was a formal notice given with 30 days.
Exactly.
notice.
I mean, you're saying
And
that
then
people
I
were
think
talking
that
about
they were
it.
discussing.
We talk about all kinds of things that never happen. I mean,
The Sylvan, or the Lincoln Senior Center has a representative sitting on the council that this is discussed in front of, and it's her responsibility to go back to the Lincoln Senior Center and say what it was.
we just had two
Again,
members
we're
of the
talking about
Council on Aging, to
responsibility.
which you are not, come in here
I'm
last
not.
week.
But
Right,
I've
and
been
we
to
had,
every meeting
we had-
since October 2016.
we had two okay.
And not anybody else can say that.
And Cindy, last year you were singing a different tune, we all know that, but two
No,
members.
I actually investigated it to find out which tune was being played correctly.
Two members of the.
Yes, Lorelei, I investigated it.
Two
And
members
that's true.
of the
And
council.
I read all the minutes, and I was shocked of the slanderous things that were said in it.
Two members of the Council on Aging last week were here telling us about things that they did not know and to which they were never made privy, and decisions were being made by members on the Council on Aging in between meetings, which it specifically says in their bylaws they created in 2015
Judy was
that they can
absent
do
at the
that.
meeting because she had had some accident. So if you check and you look on the videos that are published there, you can see who was in
There are all
attendance.
kinds of examples of this, Cindy. There was a letter that was
There may be.
produced. There was a letter
I
that was
have not witnessed them, and I've been in attendance to them.
There was a letter that was produced by the Council on Aging, signed by the president, that the members didn't even know was mailed out. So there are plenty of examples of this exact repeated behavior. And whatever you're talking about slander, I mean, that has nothing to do with the actions of the council. And I should say the inaction of the council. The people who have been on that council, who have ever spoken out, have had the same exact concerns. That isn't by coincidence. These people aren't friends. They weren't even serving on the council at the same time. They're constantly having the same complaints. And my problem is that we are double and triple funding some of these services in the county. And as we learned today from OCCK, they offer some of the very same services that we're claiming that we pay our Council on Aging to provide, which is basically a switchboard service for anyone who's looking for a specific company or provider to come in and do things for them. And we heard, I forget their names here, but we heard the OCCK representatives, Patrick and Shelia, we heard them say that they will do things such as go through the process of the paperwork to see if and when they get their assessment, what they're eligible for as far as aid. The Area Agency on Aging does the same exact thing. So for us to be triple funding these particular services doesn't make any sense. There's no consolidated information source. And basically what they also said is that Teresa, who we pay, doesn't even refer people to them. and they provide those services. So that's an interesting thing.
If the service is being
OCCK,
provided
I'll
here,
call
why
on
would they
you.
refer to
I'll
them?
call on you when you have an actual response at the end of what I'm saying.
Recording.
So when OCCK provides those services and they're not even being contacted by the people that we're paying to be that switchboard, why wouldn't we just refer them through, I mean, North Central Flint Hills, excuse me, I always say regional, North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging has a list with OCCK on it as far as these are the people that you can contact. And I understand not everyone has a computer and not everyone can access that regularly, but that is the purpose of the senior centers. I mean, that's why they exist. It's not just to have an office where certain people go to receive particular advice. I mean, look at the bus service that we're double funding. We're funding our local bus service. It was so slow that we actually considered reducing the hours at the end of last year. And when the bus driver threatened to quit because the hours weren't going to be full-time, we kept it full-time. That's what happened at the end of last year. Now, since then, if there has been an increase in ridership, I don't know. I have all the records of ridership from the previous year, so I do know that it was poorly utilized. And maybe there's been an increase since then. I know the bus board was making some efforts to get that out there. But we're funding that, we're match funding that program, and yet we received correspondence from the Council on Aging that says that they are providing transportation. So now, if you have a medical need, you can use OCCK. If you have an in-county or even out-of-county need, you can use our local bus service. And the Council on Aging is providing personal rides during working hours that we're paying for to be transported to various activities, which is what our bus is for, and which what we're already, I mean, that was reported as one of the activities that the coordinator does for the Council on Aging. I asked for a list of what's provided, and it's in there. Some other disturbing things are in there, but basically, it's transportation support for individuals needing to go to doctors outside of the local transportation area, which is exactly what we just heard OCCK say that they do. That's what they do. In fact, they even said they'll do it one person at a time. You're not even necessarily riding with a bus full of people.
And that's services to Salina, but not services to Wichita.
So
See,
now
there's
you're
more
saying that
specific
we're paying a
questions you
local
could have
person to
asked
drive to Wichita.
I hope not, but I don't know.
That's
But
what you're
no,
suggesting
what you just
by that
said is that
comment.
OCCK provides it wherever they need to.
Cindy,
go,
I'll
and
call
that's
on
not
you
true.
at the end when I'm done. I'm on the agenda,
Well,
not
you
you.
don't
If you
want
want to
any
get on the
facts.
agenda, you can schedule with Dawn.
You're supposed to be on the agenda at a certain time, but you didn't
I'm-
bring everything
I'm on the agenda, actually.
at the latest
So-
time.
I'm on the agenda now. I'm on the agenda for
Okay,
quite a
so
while yet,
go.
so you're more than welcome to get on the agenda. And I will take your comments at the end. So basically, I just wrote down what I had experienced when I met with Central Flint Hills, and it was interesting to me. I was delighted by the willingness of the executive director of the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging to come and meet with me in person to accurately describe the entirety of their program and their relationship with counties, and specifically Lincoln County. The North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging is a state-level program that is funded through federal and state money, distributed to them by the Older Americans Act and the Senior Care Act. We all contribute to these causes through our income and sales tax. The money is allocated to regions throughout the state where they set up offices to perform certain duties. We have an office here in Salina with headquarters in Manhattan. They do not expect counties to perform their obligations, but rather spread knowledge about their services and work with them to find and coordinate volunteers to carry out some of the tasks or put people in touch with the proper providers of services. Executive Director Julie said that she has always wondered why Lincoln County has never had many SHIC volunteers. This is just one of many programs they support and promote. She then went on to inform me that the duty of the Council on Aging is to represent the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging by searching for and finding and promoting SHIC volunteers. This is something our local board has never done. In fact, I do not believe they even know that this task has been assigned to them. The only person who could possibly know this would be Teresa Richards, the employee of the board, who has been in touch with North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging and has been in her paid position for more than a decade. Why has she never informed the board members of this implied obligation to the state's program, to which we donate money? I asked the executive director if there are any hierarchical positions in the SHIC program. No, she said. Every SHIC person performs the same exact duties, and it is strictly volunteer. You can get qualified through training provided by North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging, and do your continuing ed through them as well. This was alarming to me, as our county coordinator has repeatedly called herself a SHIC partner, telling people that she holds a higher position even while she refused to support other volunteers in the area and continues to do her counseling for SHIC on paid time by the LCCA. Furthermore, why is the county general fund matching contributions to North Central Flint Hills instead of paying the entire fee out of the mill levy for senior services? I can't think of any other organization that is truly offering these services in the same capacity. The money was specified for this purpose, yet we are drawing from other important funds to help pay for something when the LCCA has had nearly $100,000 in the bank for years.
Can I ask a question real quick? Are you talking about the Senior Care Act money, or are you talking about?
I'm talking, you said that we used to match, and now we pay one portion, and they pay another portion for those fees.
We just pay the Senior Care Act part, so if I misstated that, and then the actual agency, like membership dues, or whatever you wanna call them, the administrative fee that we pay, they pay everything 100%, so we pay just that Senior Care Act part.
Right, but what I'm saying is we have a special mill levy in our county for senior programs, and
So why isn't the Senior Care Act money coming from that? That's, okay.
Right, that's
Okay.
exactly what
I
I'm
just
saying.
want to make sure I understood that.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Furthermore, North Central Flint Hills provides many programs, such as free presentations on a variety of subjects, legal services, social services, SHIC, direct payments for the Friendship Meals Program, which Lincoln Senior Center has. And guess what? The report we received from the employee of the LCCA board lists all of these services as her own. Yes, it lists the services provided by North Central Flint Hills as functions of her own particular paid position as an employee. In other words, our LCCA has employed someone who claims that their job functions have been doing what we already pay a group to do. Every last thing that is listed on the Council on Aging report of functions of the county coordinator are all services that are provided by North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. When you go to their website, they list each county and it gives you contacts for each type of service. None of them refer you to our LCCA board or employee, Teresa Richards. They refer you to the proper agency to handle your issues. The only tasks on that report that was given to us by the employee of the LCCA, which are not activities of the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging, are related to work being done for the LCCA board, which should be done by the officers themselves. I am aware that Teresa Richards has been doing the secretary's job of publishing minutes. She has been doing the treasurer's job of keeping the accounting, as well as writing her own checks and keeping her own hours. Many people have noticed that she is not often available during work hours and will leave a note on the door that says she has transported someone, somewhere for something. We already pay for a county bus. Why on earth should we be double taxing our citizens? We even have a backup bus driver and a second van so we can make multiple runs at a time. Yet now we find out that someone is using county paid time to be a driver. And it was even mentioned potentially to Wichita. Ellsworth, with a population 3 times the size of Lincoln, has a county coordinator too. Her job is part-time. She is also responsible for the dispatch of the local bus, on top of everything that she would do as a county coordinator for the Council on Aging. We have less people. We duplicate services being offered by the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. There is no coordination with the county bus. and yet a full-time paid position with no time clock and no accountability for someone who writes their own paychecks exists. The LCCA board has failed to continually provide oversight and proper management of their employee. The terms are only 2 years, and I have witnessed board members say that they only learn what is going on after 1 year, and then they are so overwhelmed with the scandals that they end up quitting. The employee of the board filed lawsuits against the very same people she is supposed to serve because they wanted answers and continued to ask for documents that she refused to provide, even though state laws require it. Our own county attorney had to step in and give a lecture on state open record and open meetings acts, which were being violated again just this year. Recently, I was severely disturbed to learn that the hired hand of the LCCA has allegedly been soliciting for private jobs through clients met at the LCCA operation. 2 separate people who have reported to me that when utilizing this SHIC counselor, she asked them if they were willing to have her do their private bookkeeping, as in checking accounts and personal finances. No, they were not searching. They were approached on the matter by the LCCA staff and then refused. It says on page 1 of her report that she provides a service to balance checkbooks and read mail. I was also informed that a volunteer in my district was told that he no longer had access to his dependents' banking information because Teresa Richards had taken over that duty. Legitimate help was basically dismissed from their volunteer duties. I do not know that this particular transaction happened through the county-funded office of the LCCA, but it serves as an example that this particular person has an interest in this type of transaction, and I do not believe we should be a party to it. Are we possibly paying for time in which these transactions are happening? It is an abomination and clearly a threat to our good citizens. A county-funded position is not a channel through which anyone should be approached about their personal finances. These are professional services. There are professional services for this type of action, such as power of attorney appointments and other services that are even provided, once again, duplicated through the North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. This entire situation is not acceptable. Are we going to allow this type of predatory action take place under our noses and with our money? Mr. Wallace, I believe you have talked about being a power of attorney, and I'm sure that you have never approached anyone as a commissioner or through a county board to solicit personal financial gain from another person. How terrible. We have had at least 4 resignations in the last year because of this mismanaged organization. We're always talking about how hard it is to find volunteers, yet when we find them and subject them to this particular situation, they frequently disappear. Mr. Wallace instructed this group, the LCCA, to utilize their savings instead of requesting more money from our board last year. He suggested keeping about 6 months of expenses in pocket for a rainy day. But the most recent financials indicate that close to 200% of their expenses are still being hoarded. We have not seen a legitimate distribution of tax dollars by this appointed board. In fact, this board took it upon themselves to present budgets for other nonprofit groups without their permission. What kind of help is this for senior services? Both senior centers in the county have lodged multiple complaints about the mismanagement and malicious acts of the county coordinator, as well as the poor communication and continual change in expectations. They have hired more than 4 lawyers in the past 3 years who have given positions and opinions on the duties of the board, which they have ignored. There has never been compliance by the LCCA to the terms set forth by the hired mediator, which costs nearly $1,000. I am elected to represent my constituents, and I can tell you there are two very strong arguments in my region. Number one, the senior center just wants their money, and they want their own budget to be approved by our commission just as they do in other counties. Number two, there are those who do not wish to continue funding this debacle at all. The Sylvan Senior Center has proved that they can do enough fundraising to keep the doors open and still serve a purpose. The LCCA has been absorbing more than 50% of the mill levy. For what? To claim that they can provide services anyone can get with a phone call to North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging. Or they can use the county bus for which we already pay. We were just discussing last year cutting the county bus because it has such little use. Now we find out our elderly program money is being used by the county coordinator to provide her own private shuttle service. This double dipping has got to stop. We are being bled dry. We already cut their budget and saved taxpayers money last year. It's time for us to make some serious decisions, and I think you know these issues have gone unaddressed for way, way too long. There will be no solution until we take responsibility for the money that we collect. The commission has this authority, no one else. The tax dollars that have already been given to the LCCA, they are theirs, and we cannot take them back. They have enough money in the bank to survive for several years. And if they want to continue to provide duplicate services on our time, then let's not be a party to it. Let's fund the ones who really need the money. The buildings and services of the senior centers are where the real activities take place, the real programs. Why would we give such a dysfunctional board control over our amazing senior citizens who are still vibrant and vital to this community? They are capable of taking care of themselves. And until the public revokes this mill levy for the elderly, the commission needs to give the money to them, the elderly, not continue to throw money at the problem, hoping it will just go away. This whole problem belongs to us, and we must be the leaders. We can choose to let this charade continue, or we can simply utilize our power of the purse, as Mr. Wallace once called it, to solve all these issues at once. I move to begin funding the Lincoln and Sylvan Senior Centers directly from the mill levy for services for the elderly, according to their own budgets presented to this commission on a yearly basis.
Their entire budget?
I believe at our...
Because if they're so successful at raising money, they're asking us for $25,000 next year.
I am not making a motion to approve the budgets. I am making a motion to fund them according to their budgets that they present to us. Not according to the budgets that we've heard from both senior centers. Both have said that the Council on Aging has prepared a budget for them. That's not acceptable. The Council on Aging has not been forthright in bringing us real information. They bring us their own version. And so I think it's our duty to take both senior centers and fund them as we see fit. I'm not saying you have to give them 100%. I don't think you have to give anyone 100% of what they ask, let alone the increase that is always asked. But I think we need to look at them separately.
Budget stuff is something we're going to discuss at budget time.
I have only one comment that worries me a little bit about us taking over distributing this money from us. Don, we did that to the county bus, right? And he ended up being an employee, right? What is going to be the, if we start doing this to the senior centers, are those directors going to become, are they going to be looked at as employees, or what's going to happen?
I don't believe so, because you would be donating the money. The difference with the transportation bus was when that auditor came in, who was a federal auditor and wanted to appropriate. we told them, we provided the equipment, we provided the insurance on the equipment, we paid for the equipment. We
were
told
paying
them
the
when
bills
to work.
directly.
We were basically telling them when to work, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't have a separate board that organized them and considered them we had a separate board, but it wasn't like that board had
Independent
authority
financial
to-
status.
But they hire and fire.
Yes, but we also paid their bills directly. The difference, I think, will come in that we won't pay their bills. It will be no different than the hospital, OCCK, mental health, those organizations. You're just going to give them an allotment and a distribution for them to do as they choose. Now, if you start regulating how they spend their money, then that might draw us into another conclusion.
I'm talking about a budget approval, not at 100%, like you said, Terry. I'm not saying yes, whatever they ask for, we give them. I'm saying they bring us a budget, we say we're giving you X for your budget. Once you distribute that money, just like to the LCCA, it's no longer our money. The LCCA has $100,000 in the bank. They can do what they want with it. Until that organization ceases to exist, they have total control over that money. We can't get it back. We can't say where it goes. Nothing. They have that money. And if they as a board, and they have their own 501c3 status with the IRS, they as a board can spend that money however they want, pretty much. I mean, there are some restrictions federally, but someone would have to know what they were doing with that money.
I think we made it pretty clear at budget time last year that we wanted those reserves spent down.
I know.
They haven't been spent down, so there's another budget, there's another disbursement coming in June, and I haven't seen any of the reserves get spent down, so.
Terry, may I just speak to that budget too for a minute? When you have time to look it over, you'll see that a large chunk of that money we're asking for is mill levy money that has been withheld from us over the past couple of years. And if we went back, it could be thousands and thousands of dollars. So that isn't necessarily all what
You're
we're
saying
asking.
part of the 25
But
that you
she's
said
just
is
saying
Yes.
that you can fund yourself. She just said that.
What she's saying is we have to fund ourselves too, because we're not being funded by the LCCA. They've been derelict in their
You
duty
guys are
to
the
do
ones that
that.
said you wouldn't accept any money from them.
Yes, because of the hassles that we've had people in Sylvan Grove ill,
Okay.
physically and mentally
Yes,
ill
that
because
is-
of their dealings with the LCCA. And we finally got to a point where we said we can't kill our senior citizens because of the board that's supposed to be protecting them. So people remove themselves from that situation. But what I'm saying is the budget isn't that high. It also reflects money that was withheld to us.
that you're saying there's a payment that reflects in next year's budget that you want as retroactive money.
Right.
But the budget, the operating budget is not all, that's not all of it. That total dollar is not
Right.
what you're saying you need for one
And
year's expenses.
Right, and it's not all expected. There's a section on there they put, it's like a dream list, and it's things, hopes, plans that we're making for the future. It's not expected to be budgeted by you.
I'm not sure that we ever expect to fund 100% the senior citizens. I mean, I think that's unrealistic myself, to expect us to fund 100%. But I guess I am concerned about the lack of money from this year this commission, when we approved that budget, it said X amount of money was going to go to the Sylvan. I am extremely concerned that that money has not been distributed. That money was actually given there to be, my feeling was to be transferred there. And I have raised that with many of the LCCA members. I will still say that, yes, I think this year what we budgeted for you, and off the top of my head, I think it's around $8,000, wasn't it?
Yes, 74 or something.
I think it needs to be paid, you know. So, I'm still there.
I
I'm
thought
sorry. Take
budgets
Terry's
as a taxpayer for all organizations that have been submitted to the county commissioners was a proposed budget.
Yeah.
Don't have a comment, Terry.
Can I I want to throw my 2 cents in, and I swore I was going to prepare myself before I ever did this, but one of the things that Ladonna and I had talked about that she didn't get to today was, she had said at the town hall meeting, why don't they do distributions similar to the way that she gets grant funds, where there's a base amount that goes to each senior center, and then you figure out, like, for her, she gets based upon population. So whatever county size we are, our population estimate that we receive at the beginning of the year. So, and then you get an X amount of dollars based upon the population for the area served. Then that is their funding for the year. But then there's still additional funding in which any organization that provides services for the elderly could apply for grant funding through this program. Now, you know, I realize that you guys cut down to the 75,000 and they are actually allowed to have, services for the elderly is actually allowed up to 2 meals. But then I was just sitting here thinking about, as OCCK was talking about their services. Now, mind you, I know that their services are based upon disabilities. They tend to help people with more disabilities. But then I look at the transportation bus, and I don't really know what their ridership age is, but I'm assuming that the majority of their ridership is above, 65. What if you did the 2 mills and you appoint a board that would go to help you figure out proper distribution of the funds, and even the money that you give to the transportation bus could come from that services for the aged mill levy. Maybe not 100% of the 20,000, but maybe 10% or 50% of it, or something like that. And maybe us really look at it, and even then, if the Council on Aging wanted to continue to be in existence, then they could apply for funding just
separately,
as well
just
as
as all of
everybody
these
else.
other. I totally agree. That's how other counties do it.
You know, I know the Extension District does a lot of elderly programs. The health department.
Well, and you're onto something. I mean, we have a home health care situation to consider. Now, Ladonna informed me, I didn't realize this, there are maybe up to 6 different providers, one of which could be OCCK. You know, and technically the way that our resolution is written for this money, any of them, if they're servicing a majority of elderly people, if that's their target, service population in our county, they're eligible to apply for that money. Now, I'm not saying we can just give it out to anyone in every organization, but we have an overlapping of funding. We really do. I mean, it's becoming apparent every time I get a budget at this seat and I see the services that they list are crossing over. And like she said it from OCCK, Shelia, she said, well, we used to only do mental disability. Now it encompasses physical disability as well. So those are growing provisions, and it encompasses senior disability, which just comes from aging. It's not even necessarily an injury that causes a disability. You can just get to the point where you're not as mobile and you need some sort of, all of these things are overlapping, and I think there's a better way than to just give the lump sum to one group who we've seen for 10 years or more puts it in the bank. I mean, that is not a good use, and I don't think that's what the original money was intended to do. I think this has been instituted way long before you guys were in here. And I know you guys, for the last decade or whatever, have just been giving it the way it was always done, but we can see that it's created problems. And other counties, like I'll go back to Ellsworth because I've done some research there. The woman who has the paid position as county coordinator, yes, she's available to do SHIC. Yes, she's available to locate different organizations like OCCK and point someone in the right direction. But on top of that, she also does the logistics for the transportation for the bus. So she has a lot of different responsibilities and only a part-time position. We're basically giving this money to a board who employs someone to do their job. I mean, the treasurer isn't keeping the books. The secretary isn't creating and producing the minutes alone. We're funding them to just have an employee, and the turnover is so high there. I mean, it's very interesting. And the group is rejecting potential participants. I mean, there's a lot of instability, and like Dawn said, if they want to apply, fine. They can still apply for that money. But we have the control of that money, and I think we need to start. It's like the senior center. Terry, you wanted Sylvan Senior Center. They got, what, $3,500 cash last year? Something like that?
No, 7,000.
No, you're including, like, the toilet and the... Yeah, you're including the toilet and the floors for $13,000 or whatever. The cash amount was like $3,500.
Yeah.
I don't think that's correct.
It is. 'Cause
Yeah,
we just checked it.
yeah.
We got all kinds of
And we
paperwork on
received it.
The flooring wasn't considered part of that. 'Cause
The
that
toilet was
an upgrade.
separate.
The flooring was $7,000 with the
Right,
lights
but that's
on.
not part of our budget.
What I'm saying though is, regardless, we can talk about that, but the point is, you want them to comply with the audit. If and when they don't comply with the audit, you don't give them their funding. I think we have better say over that than asking a third party to watch over them. That's bureaucracy at its
But there's never been an
finest.
audit, that's the thing. If we're gonna start doing it, there's gonna be an audit. We didn't require an audit before because we weren't doing it.
Well, but for example, OCCK brings us this nice little package with colored print and everything else and a lot of statistics, but I don't see an audit. So I'm not saying there shouldn't be one.
Do they furnish us with an
But-
audit? I know Central Kansas Mental Health and those organizations do.
I'm sure there's one that
Their
exists.
annual meeting or something. But
I'm sure there's one that exists, but I'm saying they don't bring it to the table when they ask for funds. Just like Sylvan didn't bring theirs to the table when they asked for funds. If we want to request that, more power to us for being, having good oversight.
It appears to me that out of the $13,751, a little over 7,000 was for things other than cash. There was a $1,271 deposit, a $1,304 deposit, $1,156.
Yeah, but you're going clear back to 16.
That's their physical year. They don't have a calendar year. Their year starts in October. There's an $1,890 check. There's a $360 check, there's a $252 check, a $591 check, and a $210 check.
No, but see, that's for lighting. They're all designated. You're just reading off all the numbers.
No.
I'm talking about cash for operating expenses. You're reading off everything that was given, like lighting, $591. They installed new lights in the ceiling. That's not cash. That's to pay for the actual material good.
They reimbursed them for money that they'd spent, apparently.
No, that lists everything that was, like, when they paid for the particular items that had been approved as an improvement project.
They're separate.
Okay.
See, they don't even list SCCA on those expenditures. They're just expenditures. The ones that say SSC were the ones that checks, that's who their checks were written to.
sometimes I think everybody splits hairs about what was given to them and what wasn't given to them. But the reality is okay, whatever the dollar amount was given for them to pay for upgrades to their building and their utilities. I think what maybe Sylvan Senior Center is saying is it's not enough to pay for the utilities, that they can't
It was
offer.
more than enough to pay for the utilities.
No, you're counting,
It wasn't.
Yes, it was.
No, you're counting the,
I saw your bills. They're like $100 and some dollars
Where's-
a month
you're
for
using the-
electricity. They're $100 a month for the gas.
that's $1,200 a year. They only got $3,500. That's
they
$1,200 a piece for 3 utilities. That's more, that's more than 35, 12, 12, 12.
It's $5,000 and some dollars for.
I mean, Mike Recky's put
And they
hours
did
and
not
hours
get-
of working on this, and it shows how short. I mean,
You're not using the actual budget or the actual payment list though. You're just using that breakdown between what they paid for the floor. There were several.
It's a list of, it's a list of the payments made to or for the Sylvan Seniors.
Okay, but Terry, there's a difference between operating cash and payments made for improvements.
Okay.
The improvements were a toilet, correct me, toilet, lighting, floor, and
There was
something else.
$3,600
Tables
saved
and
for
chairs.
bills in the
Tables and
first
chairs.
3 months of their physical year. Then there was another check for
Are you
$1,800 and
talking-
some dollars written for other utilities, insurance. I don't remember what all it was.
Terry, I think though the difference is in that October payment that was paid to them, that was for back bills for the previous year. Because I remember going to those meetings and trying, and then I think the part of the payment in December was for the insurance.
Well, they're always
for the
gonna have a
previous year.
reimbursement from the prior year because that carries over into the next year.
I
They
know.
didn't get their bills in the
but it's
prior.
I know, but-
thousands
It's
of
gonna be that way
dollars
every year.
the mill levy's behind, not just a few dollars. It's thousands and thousands. And I wish Mike was here because he could give you exact numbers.
This is
but
the
he had to
last-
work today.
This is the last one where it says the net loan from their private account that they use to pay for expenses, operating expenses, okay, like utilities, insurance, etc. They still haven't ever been reimbursed $1,972.06. But what you're talking about is all these additional payments that were made to cover the lights and the toilet and the floor.
There was $5,000 and some dollars that was for operating expenses. It was utilities, it was insurance,
Actually,
I don't wanna
they've never-
split hairs about it, but there wasn't. The reality was when I got involved in it in 2016, they had not received any payments. And the reason why they had not received the payments, the reasoning was because they weren't turning in their paperwork, they weren't turning in their minutes or their manager's report. I worked with some ladies to get that information to turn in. When they got it turned in, and it was finally, everything was turned in October, the board agreed to go back and pay, I believe, from February to the current, to reimburse them their expenses. Then they wanted the utilities all put in the council on aging's name, and the utilities paid directly, and the Sylvan Senior Center said no. And then, but they did.
Which again is like what you said, when you have one organization paying the bills for another organization, there was this term floating around like umbrella, because Lincoln Senior Center lost their 501c3 status, just like Sylvan did, because it's a matter of paperwork and changing of secretaries and treasurers, etc. And we actually found out from the IRS it's illegal. You can't have one entity claiming nonprofit status for two separate groups. You just can't do that. So they did that to justify giving them the funds, and they told Sylvan, no, you can't have any funds because you didn't come under our umbrella, our illegal umbrella. So we have so many issues with this board. They really don't know what they're doing. I think we just need to fund them separately. They need to spend the money that Aljo told them to spend so that they can provide whatever services they say they're providing. I gave you my examples of the duplicate and triplicate services. That's up to us to decide at a later date, I suppose. But right now, the motion I had on the table, not that we fund 100% of the requested budgets, just that we do it like Ellsworth and other counties, and look at each senior center as an individual group that is not, there's no reason to ask a group of seniors to report to that board. They can report directly to us.
Can I ask a question? Why don't we drop what has done in the past and not worry about what's the past, but make a change for the future? Make a change that involves a change today moving forward. Because if we keep counting the past, all we're doing is beating a dead horse. And let's just start from here and move forward. And then
And I think that I said I was willing to look at it at budget time.
Could I also speak to a couple of the issues that Alexis mentioned? I just know when she spoke of budgets, we sat down and drew up a budget for our senior center, our officers, our executive board. We gave it to the LCCA, and when they came and presented to you, they presented a budget that had been made up by the LCCA that didn't even include the things that our senior center drew up. It wasn't even the same amount, it was actually more. But the point is just that when we made a budget, we assumed our budget would be presented to the people who were giving us, who were overseeing the process. That's one of the problems we see, and that's why Shirley's in here crazy getting this budget to you, because we wanted to do it before they did what we wanted our budget to be. Also, a problem I saw was this mediation, which the LCCA insisted on having, and the majority of the suggestions that they paid money for, serious money for, were directed at the LCCA, things that they wanted Teresa and that group to do for both senior centers.
90% of them. There was one requirement for Sylvan.
Right, which was to be nice and friendly, which we try to do. But none of those things, I mean, we went out of our way and we invited people to our meetings. We invited the whole LCCA to our meetings. Teresa and Les actually came to one of our meetings. But the point is that those suggestions that the LCCA paid a lawyer a great deal of money to draw up were never followed.
Well, the most recent attorney that they hired told them that they had to comply with open records because we had a citizen request to open the books, and still, the attorney was sitting at the table and they took a vote to open the books and they still voted, no, it passed, but there were still members that voted no. Right against the attorney's advice in the middle of the meeting, and they are mandated by the state to comply to these things. We just have a dysfunctional board. And it's been ongoing, and we can't even list all the complaints. I highlighted the ones that deeply concern me. I mean, I really don't think we should be allowing a county-funded board to be soliciting for private jobs, be it taxiing someone around, asking to do your checkbook work. No, these things, the county cannot be affiliated with that. We have a professional duty to separate ourselves from that kind of activity.
Because it's too much opportunity for, that's a
Oh,
liability.
Yeah, that is a liability for us.
And the other thing I just say on SHIC, we had people from Sylvan who wanted to do SHIC as volunteers, and were told they couldn't do it because that was handled by the OCCK. And that's, according to OCCK today, that's in direct conflict with what their program is about. You're supposed to be encouraging volunteerism for SHIC.
Well, what I was told by North Central Flint Hills is that the whole point of the Council on Aging working with Flint Hills is to take the information that Flint Hills has available and just get it out there, which would be through the senior centers. That's where most of the people are coming. And see, North Central Flint Hills Area Agency on Aging, they actually pay the cooks and they pay the site manager, they call it, for the meals program. They buy the food, they have it delivered. All of that financial stuff is taken care of by Area Agency on Aging. Now, what the senior center is doing is subsidizing their pay so that they're not just making minimum wage. And I understand that, but they're still not employees of the senior center. They're actually employees of Area Agency on Aging, because that's who's paying direct, just like we said about we used to pay the bus bills directly. Area Agency on Aging is they're buying the food, shipping it to the door, and paying the cooks, and paying the cook, I guess, and paying the site manager. They expect the rest of it to all be volunteer. Our senior center in Lincoln has been nice enough to help entice people to be there with money and funding, which I don't have, I think that's maybe what our senior mill levy money is supposed to be doing. But what we're not supposed to be doing is using that money to pay for something that we already have access to. I mean, we can be doing a lot more with that, like Dawn said, about using some of that in the bus fund, reducing our general obligation out of our general budget. I mean, we have a lot of ways we can kind of just quit overlapping and cut down the fat there.
I think Ladonna kind of took care of that when she said that people wouldn't go to Manhattan, they want someone local to deal with it. Whether that's a full-time person or not, I don't know, but they need somebody local to deal with. We'll adjourn until Monday morning, the 21st.
Can I make one announcement, since there's so many people wanting to take the SHIC training? The next training is in Wamego on June 27th. Expect to see you all there.
And you're gonna check and see about that Salina office deal, right, Cindy?
Yes, I am.